Jodi Day.
Hey, Jodi Day. Saturday, Jodi Day. Long Jodi Day.
Long Jodi Day. Long Jodi Days are better than short Jodi Days.
Yeah.
Even though a short Jodi Day is better than a non-Jodi Day. But
Mm.
today we get. I got my beer. I don't have popcorn, but I got beer and Smarties. So I'm going
Okay.
to kick back and I'm going to relax and I'm going
Mm.
to enjoy Jodi taking the stand.
Yeah, and I have my coffee in my mug, and if necessary, well, there's options. Oh, I bought this the other day because I haven't had this in a long time. Johnny Walker Black Label.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That's been sitting behind me in my studio for quite a while, and I
Mm.
haven't drank any of it in a little bit. I got about half the bottle left. That's good stuff. That Black Label is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, this when I okay, these are the Johnny Walker. Then I'm thinking about the cheap stuff, and no, but then a few days ago, Black Label. I remember that.
So I don't know if you consider Black Label cheap or not. It's good, and I don't really care about the price of things. If you're concerned about how much something costs, then I think you're focusing on the wrong part.
Yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah,
That's the question.
But here's the thing: Johnny Walker's. I think Blue Label is the standard one, and that doesn't. I'm not a fan.
I'm not
But
a Scotch
Black
fan,
Label.
no, generally.
But then I have my Aran over here. That is tarmac, really giving Lagavulin and Lafroig a run for its money. Really, really smoky stuff. And yeah.
So we're going to sit back and enjoy some Jodi. 20th Century Fox is out in the chat firing off questions. What is that intro music, she asks. That is an awesome piece of instrumental music that I found on a website catered to non-copyright claim, YouTube friendly, and I just really liked it. And then I cut it. It's not the whole song, obviously, and it's been spliced together for me by me for the introduction video, and I really like it. And then you also asked something about
the website is Artlist.
Yes,
that you can get copyright-free snippet of music and stuff like that.
Well, it's not so much copyright-free, but they have an agreement that what's nice about the website is so I had a bunch of like licensing for my earlier music too, but I would have to upload it for each video after a copyright claim. This is automatically communicates with YouTube and says this particular creator has a license.
Yeah.
So
it's free as long as you pay for it.
Well, I mean, you do have to pay for it, but the idea is that it automatically uploads, so you don't get struck every time and then have to fight it.
Yeah, YouTube Studio I stopped using after I got because some of the music they have are I have to get a separate license for. So I got copyright struck using YouTube Studio's own music. Well, that was fun.
And all this fun stuff you learn and you don't think about before you decide to just jump, headfirst into streaming. Like the chat. I never chatted. I didn't know about chat, really. I mean, I knew it existed, but I wasn't prepared for the conversation. What to offer members once you got monetized, the whole monetization thing. All of this stuff is just something I never prepared for.
Yeah, I was in the big law tubers chat from the debt trial moving forward, and then I started thinking, can I do this? And then I made a few trial videos and thought, maybe. And then I plunged right into it the day before Andrew Tate got arrested. And then I was, okay, I got my first case I'm going to cover. And I've been covering that ever since.
And yes, Jodi, I am on my boat today.
Yeah, his sailing boat that still hasn't sunk.
That's
right. The boat he hasn't sunk yet.
Yet. There's always a yet.
And what was I thinking about? Yeah, a couple of days ago there was non-friendly banter in the chat. So just a reminder, both mine and David's channel, we are in the growing phase. Most of our viewers are for reoccurring viewers who are used to it. But we are now getting people in who haven't seen us before. So having them plunge right into this banter thing might be discouraging. So please keep it down a bit, at least an hour or two in.
If you care about Nick and I, you guys will, whatever. We don't want to just discourage new listeners. That's all, or viewers,
Yeah.
or chatters, or whatever. And by the way, if you are new here, Nick and I are dual streaming. You'll see a link at the top of each of our chats taking you to the other chat, and you won't miss anything. Because we are dual streaming, you can give us both subscriptions, thumbs up, likes, tell your friends, do all of the wonderful things that we ask you to do, and you guys are so good at doing, to help spread the word and help both of our channels grow.
Yeah. If you have social media, please share the link to this stream to your friends and stuff like that. And
can we still perv out over the hot attorneys? Yes.
Yes.
And I am one of them, Genital. So go right for it. I am one of those very attractive attorneys that you're talking about.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Oh, the last trial I covered, the Austin Ford trial. That was really interesting. Not for the lawyers. Yes, there was. You had Uncle Phil on the prosecution. You had No Stash.
I loved his mustache. I loved his mannerisms. Just gotta say that. I like that guy. He would defend me if I had a criminal case. I would honestly, I would go get him.
Yeah. Yeah. And what struck me in that case the most was the witnesses, the expert witnesses, and the cops and everything. How it was male cops and witnesses, middle-aged dudes on the heavier side. Female cops and experts, very much pretty young ladies. Well, except the medical examiner she was amazing. I have emailed her asking for an interview. I'm still in.
Well, they got another trial now, so I don't think she's going to respond.
Yeah, but that's the thing I learned about Georgia speedy trial rules. There is a time limit for when they can bring the charges to trial. So
yeah, and I don't know what Michigan has in comparison. I have to imagine they have something similar.
Hi, Lefty. Yeah, but apparently on is it Wednesday? Yeah, this Wednesday they will have a hearing first for the mother's contempt of court hearing, but they will also have the hearing if they will have a sentencing for charges 6, 7, and 8, or if the prosecution will take a third stab at it. Because if they take a third stab at it, as I interpreted it, if it goes to a hung jury a third time, they don't have time for a fourth trial, and then all charges will be gone. That was really interesting. So if they take a third stab at it and fails again, he's going to walk. And yeah, so we'll see if they will take a third stab at it and take that chance, or if they simply will go for the sentencing just to get 1 to 3 years.
Again, it's kind of like the prosecutor was hedging his bets with the jury instructions, right? There's 8 to 4. Let's keep it going because the odds are in my favor, right? And then when it came back as a hung jury, he can get him sentenced to something, right? Yeah. He can consider that a technical win, right?
Yeah.
So is he going to do that? But he's already tried this case now twice in the public eye.
Yeah.
is he going to want to take that personal loss, right? It's a technical
Yeah.
win, but it's going to be a personal loss for him.
Mm.
And this is where that personal loss shouldn't come into play, right? Because
No.
this is where we're supposed to be a court of justice. This is
Mm.
supposed to be finding the truth. And if you
Mm.
have two hung juries, as if you step back and look at it rationally, you should say, okay, we're just going to take what we got and move on.
Yeah.
So, anyways, why is my chat slowing up twice? I don't know what's going on. There's been some issues with
YouTube
chat
speaking.
function
Yeah.
lately.
YouTube
It's been
and
really weird for the last couple of weeks.
yeah, YouTube and StreamYard isn't connecting or speaking to each other that well. I've been sending to StreamYard that please do something. For instance, David's chats when he writes them in StreamYard shows up twice on his channel and once on mine.
Yeah, I was just typing that out. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. My chats only show up on mine, and I'm hosting, so I'm not really sure what's going on.
By the way, I'm actually looking to change up, instead of using StreamYard, to use Streamlabs. It takes a lot to set it up, but once it's done, it's so much better. And then Nick, I can still send you a link and you can join me and stuff like that. You don't have to have an account, but I'm really looking forward to that. Somebody, Chris, is Chris in chat? She jumped in. Yeah, Chris Mullen jumped in on one of my member streams last night. I did like a 10-minute member stream testing it because I wanted to see how the chat function worked and everything. And I thought she could hear me. And then I played it back and I realized nobody could hear me because I had my volume turned all the way down. Oh, it was a disaster. But thanks, Chris, for jumping in on that.
Yeah, maybe. Can we do that as a dual stream so I can see how you are doing and then maybe try to set it up myself? I don't know.
Yeah, we could do that. And then I know Excited Utterance wants me to help her setting up StreamYard. So I might do is actually send you all a Zoom link, and then we can all play around with all of it.
Yeah. All right. But we are here for again. This stream is on both of our channels, and I'm also streaming on Rumble. And my Rumble link is in my description below. So if you prefer to watch on Rumble, that's an option.
All right. Okay. Have we killed enough time to get as many viewers here as possible? Now, we do have, I will say, because of Nick's trial that was going last week, our Tuesday stream was cut a little bit short. So we didn't finish the cross and redirect and all that of the last witness. So we're going to have to get back to that. We have maybe 10, 15 minutes of him. And then Jodi's taking the stand.
Yeah. Okay. But here we are. I just put back a few seconds. And
I'll let you know about Streamlab.
What?
Nothing.
Okay. Dun dun dun.
The hair is without dye. It might be the same color, therefore there would be no roots.
Council approach.
And I have everything boosted. Let us know if our sound is too high so we can lower our mics compared to the court stream.
I like setting it to automatic and then go from there.
Yeah, me too.
Because it should monitor it with the court level, I think. I don't know. Why can I not hear seagulls? I have my mic settings the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I have my window open and they are collecting hay outside, but you still can't hear that. So that's amazing how that sound. Bird sound real.
Is the forehead there?
Yes.
What's the color of the hair closest to the forehead?
I can't make a determination, and the reason for that is we're looking at a picture of a picture.
Excuse me. I asked you whether or not you could make out the color. Is the answer no?
No one could.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Oh, he's still trying to make her out as blonde. Okay.
Judge, may I ask a question so that I don't have to recall them later?
Yes, you may.
So take a look at these photographs and please don't demonstrate them to anybody. Exhibit 425 to 427. Take a look at them.
Okay, I viewed them.
These photographs, did they also come from the hard drive that was broken?
I do not know.
You didn't review all of it? Or how is it that you recognize some photographs but not others?
The photographs that I was asked to identify previously were shown to me by counsel prior to my coming into the courtroom, and I was able to refer to my reports and identify them.
All right.
These have not been shown before and not been asked to identify before.
I mean, I don't have any other questions.
I keep forgetting about how annoying the little elf is.
Ms. Wilmot, do you have an extensive redirect? Or is it brief?
You like him because he's annoying. We should have screen captured the two attorneys standing next to each other.
Yeah, from
we could have
Tuesday.
we could have put him in like Princess Bride
Mm.
background.
All right, we'll take the new recess
We go
at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please be back in the designated area at 1:25, and we will start promptly at 1:30. Please remember the admonition. You are excused. Have a nice lunch.
Okay, we're going to come back from lunch, and Jodi should be taking the stand. I think
Yeah.
they cut out on this particular stream. They cut out the whole questioning. You have the right to not testify, and blah 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 blah.
Mm.
We're
Yeah,
skipping all that.
Yeah, and for you all who are here, please consider becoming a member on either mine or David's channel. Mine is $3 a month, and you get members-only content and
Thank you, Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Dorkin.
Good afternoon.
and
I
a
just
link
have
to the
just a few
Discord.
questions, I think,
Nope,
for you with
sorry.
regard
I thought they were
to,
to Jodi. Oh, the court keeps teasing us.
with regard to Exhibit 419, and that's the exhibit of the records.
Thank you, Lefty. Thank you so much.
Wait, is that me or you?
419,
that's,
that's the
you.
exhibit of
No, thank you, Lefty.
the internet history that you created on Mr. Alexander's computer, or that you looked at on Mr. Alexander's computer.
Yes.
Is that right? All right. And this was, you said these entries that we specifically looked at were somewhere between 4 in the morning to 4:35 in the morning.
Yes.
Were there many more entries than that?
In that time frame or in total?
No, total. At the internet history that you looked at.
There were approximately almost 100,000, like 990. It was like 99,000 plus entries.
Okay, and these ones that we specifically looked at in Exhibit 419 had to do with the timing of around 4 or 4:30 in the morning. Is that right?
Correct.
Were you asked to ever look at any of the YouTube videos?
No.
You would ask some questions about a mirror image, the hard drive.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have access to the actual hard drive itself?
Which hard drive are you referring to?
Miss Arias's, the broken one.
The broken one, yes?
Okay. Did you have access to the broken hard drive?
Yes, I had the forensic copy of the broken hard drive.
Did you actually see the broken hard drive also?
Yes.
Okay. And when you got a mirror image of that broken hard drive, is that just something that you can just kind of plug into a computer and any one of us can look at what's on it?
Dualstream, she's
forensic
innocent right now.
Copy is in a forensic format, so you would need to have a viewer that can view that type of.
As we are watching this trial, yes, it's 10 years ago, but as we are watching, our mindset is innocent unless proven guilty. And
And we don't
so
want to give
will
any
see.
spoilers because there's a surprising amount of people in chat that have never watched this case and don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So right now she is innocent. We're about halfway through the defense's case in chief, and we will see what the jury has to say. Apparently, the jury has a number of questions for Jodi, so that's going to be interesting too. And Dictionary Diva just became a friend of MLS. Thank you very much. Yes. By the way, you can become a member too. There are 3 levels of membership. All levels of membership get you access to the Discord, but there's additional things for other members, with the highest membership actually being a co-creator, and you can participate in streams, collaborate in streams. Wendy H has taken advantage of that twice. That's why you see a couple of videos involving her. But welcome, Diva, and everyone else that's new that I haven't spotted yet.
And on my channel, I have only 1 level because I barely know how to YouTube, and but hopefully I've had a few of my members saying, we can help. And I said, please help. I can see.
By the way, I will mention
Hmm.
it live on air. Nick, I sent you a message. Jung Min, who runs my Discord and is 100% responsible for Discord even existing and the structure that it is, has said that she'd be willing to help you with yours. Just message her on there or Twitter or something.
Yep, I got a message on Twitter while I was on the tractor, but I haven't had an opportunity to reply yet. We are collecting hay today, so I've been doing that all day, and then I took a shower, and then I joined this. Then stream. Here I am. So,
and I will say this too: if you become a member, you get access to all the cool emojis that I have. But I am limited to a certain number of emojis until I get more membership. And so when something comes across that I find funny, like a lightsaber or a baby burner phone or a stabby knife, I have to sometimes remove other ones. So that's why the murderous spider disappeared.
Yeah, I have different Vikings on mine, Boomer and my tractor. That's my members only emojis. And yeah. Oh, maybe I can show my tractor. That's a fun one. Yeah, I will do it like this when I stream from Law and SeaWorld. Yeah, that is my tractor. That's a Ferguson, 1954 Ferguson. Yeah. And I bought it because of the license plate. And you might, if you look really closely, you might understand why.
Yeah,
Yep.
FCK is what it says.
Yeah, FCK.
Why no ninjas? We have the stabby knife. That's for Jodi right now. The knife is Jodi. We have Tupac. I can probably get rid of Tupac now. That was Letitia Stout. I'll work on it. I'll play around. Give me suggestions, guys, too, in Discord.
My emoji for Jodi Arias, I'm not allowed.
It should be. I'm gonna do like a skin color bowling ball with the 3 holes facing. I'm finding that. Exactly what I'm getting for Jodi. That's going to replace Tupac, everybody. So get your Tupacs out now. It's going up here. It'll be going up during the stream.
Oh, oh, Jesus, yeah. While you are finding that, let's continue with the trial.
Format or the forensic tool that created it.
So, and what kind of viewer did you have?
I have the forensic tool that has a built-in ability to view it called Encase.
Okay, so is that something that you had to use on the mirror image before you can pull up any of these images?
Yes.
And about how many images or photos were contained on that mirror image of Miss Arias's hard drive?
I'd have to check my record. I don't know that offhand.
Okay, even about numbers?
I don't know offhand.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I check?
Sure. And let us know what you're referring to.
I'd have to load up one of my CDs. I don't have it preloaded on the computer.
All right, well, let me ask you this way. When you used NCase, did you come up with around over 100 different files?
When I used NCase
When you used NCase on the mirror image?
of the broken hard drive, I remember there was a very
Broken
large
hard drive?
number, literally thousands of images and files that we recovered.
Okay.
I just can't give you the exact number right now.
That's okay. That's really my question. So there was thousands of images?
But yes, there were thousands of them. It took days to recover the information. I had to run recovery scripts for quite some time.
When you say days, do you mean, did you leave the NCase or the recovery program running for days?
Yes.
And is that in order to help it retrieve everything off of the mirror image?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. Nothing further.
Looks like we have one question from a juror, perhaps two. Counsel, please approach.
I like your questions.
Mr. Dorkin, a juror has some questions for you. Are date and time stamps on photos taken by digital cameras able to be manually changed and or manipulated?
Yes.
Could that occur before a photo is taken or after a photo is taken?
The file wouldn't have existed prior to the photo being taken, so you couldn't do it before. The photo or the file would actually have to exist and then go in after the fact and then manipulate it. The only other way to do that would, of course, would be to change the date-time setting in the camera itself.
Any other questions from the jury? Ms. Wilmot, follow up?
Does that apply to exit information as well?
Yes, if the camera's date, you're referring to my comment about the camera's date and time? Yes, if the date and time in the camera is changed, the EXIF can only contain the information that the camera has access to. So if the camera thinks it's a particular date and time, that's what's going to be incorporated in the EXIF data and would also most likely be reflected in the file system data as well.
And when were you able to turn on this Canon camera?
I may have been able to turn it on. I did not attempt to because I knew that the camera had been seized and in storage for quite a long time. And usually the date time information is lost. And since there wasn't a specific reason to do it at the time, I wasn't asked to, and I did not.
And did you see any evidence of manipulation of time and date stamps?
No, nothing struck me as being out of order. I did do an inspection, a casual or informal inspection. While I looked at the EXIF data, I also looked at the file system data to see if they were out of alignment, and they all seemed to match. So I didn't find anything out of the ordinary or unusual.
All right, thank you. Nothing further, Judge.
Mr. Martinez?
And
Sir, with regard to,
one thing I forgot. No matter which one you are watching, if you wouldn't mind, just jump over, like, and then jump back. So both our channels get as much likes as possible. That way, YouTube algorithms will pick it up and promote it to more. So if you wouldn't mind, that would be very, very sweet of you. End of rant.
exhibit number 413, which is one of the photographs. Is it possible that, for example, this particular photograph, that it was taken in 2007 and then uploaded or downloaded or whatever it is that one does onto the camera in 2008?
Anything's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the jury? Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Okay.
You may call your next witness.
Thank you. I understand for Brian Newmeister.
I thought it was Jodi.
Yes, sir, Mr. Dorkin, you are still under subpoena.
I was lied to. We're getting to Jodi today.
Okay, I'm speeding this up.
Brian, B-R-Y-A-N.
I'm speeding this up.
All right. If you guys refresh your screen too, if you're in mine and you're a member, you get the 3-hole wonder.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please walk right around here and have a seat. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Could you tell us your name, please?
It's Brian Neumeister, B-R-Y-A-N, N-E-U-M-E-I-S-T-E-R. I'm with USA Forensic.
And what is USA Forensic? What do you do?
We do state-of-the-art audio and video enhancement for trials and for military, other uses.
How long have you been doing that type of work?
I've been working professionally with audio and video for 32 years.
And so what kind of experience do you have in order to forensically do what you do now?
I'm a certified forensic expert in military, federal, state, civil, and aviation courts. I work with the United States District Courts as a contracted technical expert. I work with the United States Grand Jury as a contracted technical expert.
Mr. Neumeister, let me stop you right there. Are you referring to something?
Pardon?
Are you referring to something as you're telling us?
Yes, I'm just grabbing some.
Is this the guy from the depth trial?
It's easier to remember.
Okay. Can I get that marked? Just.
Sure.
I don't know. What's his name?
I'm sorry I interrupted you. So
I don't
you were telling
remember.
us.
Did
Yeah,
anybody in the chat caught his name? It's Julie O in my chat who says he was in the depth trial.
What's his name?
Brian Neumeister.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian Neumeister was in the depth trial.
We look a lot older now.
A photo expert. That's the guy who said, that's the guy who revealed the duplicates, that it was taken the exact same day, time, and second. That's the guy. Yeah. So this one is a good one. Should be a good one. We don't know if he was 10 years ago, but last year he was.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. Thank you, Julio, for catching that. I had no idea. Julio says, I remember weird shit. Yeah, you and me both. Yeah.
United States District Courts as a contracted technical expert, United States Grand Jury contracted technical expert, U.S. Department of Justice contracted technical expert, member, and I say I am or have been, and the reason I say that, I never know if the dues are paid up this early in the year, but the Audio Engineering Society, the American College of Forensic Experts, or actually the American College of Forensic Examiners, the American College of Forensic Examiners International, the American Board of Recorded Evidence. I work also with the Department of Defense and contractors on classified and unclassified forensic materials, the Department of Energy, a number of state and local law enforcement agencies. Actually, I'm working with all three agencies involved in this case right now. On different cases, I'm working with the prosecution on a number of other cases. I'm working with your firm, also with the Public Defender's Office, and also with, I believe, Mesa Police is involved in this too. I'm working for Mesa Police. I currently am working on cases for the Phoenix Police Department and the Department of Public Safety Special Investigations Unit. So my basic job is to just sort out the facts so that you have it to work with. I don't really take a side. I just analyze data, and we have two labs and we have very high-end equipment. So we're very often, if law enforcement agencies can't do it or need it done quickly, they come to us because where they're operating servers, we're operating fiber optic terror blocks. So we have quite a bit more horsepower than most forensic agencies do.
So it sounds like you work on a lot of different types of cases.
Yeah, I've worked in or for 23 different countries on different cases, and I do work a lot of homicides.
Okay, and when you're talking about work, what type of work are we talking about?
Enhancing audio, for example, 911 calls. People might want to know what's the conversation in the background of the call. What happened in the background? Can you clean up the call? Surveillance video. Can you enhance what's on the surveillance video? Can you recover any video that might have been erased from a surveillance camera? That sort of thing.
And is that basically your experience that you have in working with the sound and audio, or I'm sorry, sound and video?
I have quite a few Emmy Awards from the National Associations of Television Arts and Sciences, actually quite a slew of them for technical and audio video expertise. I've also won audio awards, the gold at the Cannes Film Festival for audio, as well as the Calgary Film Festival for audio. I've worked a lot in television for, in the
he's the guy who doesn't have a formal education, but he is the one who more or less invented this genre
BBC,
of expertise.
Fox, DreamWorks, Screen Gems Films, Touchstone, LucasArts, Universal Studios, Lorimar, Trimark, Gannett. There's quite a few.
All right, and so is this what you've been doing for the past 32 years?
Yes, that, and also we do quite a bit of audio work for audio that's been damaged from television shows that needs to be fixed. But for example, most of our work is legal. We've done over 200 cases in the last 36 months. worked on evidence in over 200 cases.
And have you been certified as a forensic expert?
Yes,
In
in
what?
federal, state, civil, and aviation, and military.
Courts?
Yes,
Were you retained in this case?
yes.
And what were you asked to do? What did you do?
I was retained back in September, I believe September 15th of 2010, and I was asked to enhance an audio recording that was made from a telephone where the person speaking on the phone had recorded the audio, and the person on the other side could not be heard very well. So I was asked to clear it up and clean it up.
Okay. Can you walk us through the process of what you do in order to clean up audio?
Sure. Is there a way we could activate that computer?
Judge, the computer's on. There are some sonographs and things that I think will help demonstrate what Mr. Neumeister does. May I show this?
Approach, please.
Mr. Neumeister, I'm showing you exhibit, the marker identification is exhibit number 429.
Okay.
That's a DVD. Do you know what that contains?
Yes. It contains a number of screen grabs of the protocol we use for this particular job.
Okay, and when you talk about protocols, what does that mean?
We have to follow a certain set of standards to make sure we can reproduce the work, or another forensic agency can reproduce the work. So we basically catalog as we're going the steps we take.
All right, and is that what's contained on the DVD of exhibit 429?
Yes.
And did you create these?
Yes.
Defense moved into evidence exhibit 429.
No objection.
429 is admitted.
All right, and is what's in exhibit 429, is that currently on your computer?
Yes.
Okay, and so for ease of process, Judge, if I can, rather than pop the DVD and use the computer.
You may.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, the first screen I received from Mr. Nerney's office was a recording, actually 7 recordings from a telephone. And I was asked to clean them up. Before we can clean them up, we have to figure out what frequencies we need to work with. So if you look at the human voice goes from about 300 hertz to about 4,000 hertz speech range from the lows to the highs. But there are sibilants or transients like st, those kind of words like st that can go up to 9,000 hertz. So when we're going to enhance a bit of audio, we need to first look at it physically on a graph to figure out what frequencies we have to work with. This particular audio recording was taken analog, which means out of an earphone jack into a digital recorder as an MP3 file at a bit rate of 128 kilobytes per second, which is not a particularly good quality, but it's adequate for human voice. So what we determine here, you'll see a little yellow line called the Nyquist theorem, and that means that the sample rate was fairly low. I'm going to be very generic on this. The sample rate is very low, which means the sibilance is going to be very low on this particular recording. So you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
If they are playing a recording, I will slow down.
What's called a spectrograph. And again, you can see the top audio frequencies are topping out around 4,000 hertz, maybe difficult to see, but what that means is a lot of the sibilants and transient things that make speech very understandable are missing. So we realize that we have to clean it up a bit and enhance it. And what I learned from looking at that recording is that the recording on the telephone was made at about 8 kilohertz, which was the sample rate. And again, this is just for the record. You may not understand it, or you can ask questions and I'd be happy to answer it. But basically, in plain English, it's not a very good recording. So my job was to make it basically more intelligible. So let's go to the next slide. This real quickly, I'm just looking at how I'm going to change the audio to better work with. We changed the file from using a process called isotope. We changed it from a wave MP3 file into a 44.1.
I missed it a little bit. What's he trying to do?
Wave file, and you can.
What is he trying to do?
Yeah, what is he trying to do with these photos?
This is him explaining. These are the hertz that he is to enhance the recording or remove background noise to have the voices more clear in this recording.
Yeah, they do play the recording. So are we getting that before she takes the stand?
Maybe.
This is a phone call recording. Sexy phone sex kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I saw a tweet, some Twitter argument about it just a few days ago. So I had no idea this was coming up. So if this is that recording, we might replay it if it's unclear for everybody.
We might edit it and then post it again.
but let's see. This will be interesting.
You can see the noise kind of on the top and on the bottom. And when you go to the next slide, you can see that a lot of that noise has gone away. Can you go back to the previous slide, just by hitting the opposite arrow? Look on the top above the orange, the noise that's up there. It's a little difficult to see on that graph, but then go to the next one. And what I've done is I narrowed the voice frequency between 300 hertz and 3,400 hertz. And that's a pretty good range to work with for the human voice. Next slide. Since it was made from a cell phone, the audio was taken into a project called DCA Live Forensics, where I eliminated some of the noises and background hum and stuff that is associated with cell phones. So, you know, some of the noise you might get behind your cell phone, some of the white noise or buzz, that was eliminated using that process. Next slide. Here, because we were limited to some of the sibilants that I talked about earlier, the S sounds and whatever, we used a little bit of what's called a vocal enhancer to bring up the kind of, I'll simply say the treble, so that it's easier to understand what people are saying. Next slide. And finally, just before we finalize it, we use a computer algorithm to remove the remaining background hiss or noise that would be on a recording. And next slide. And finally, in order to bring up Mr. Alexander's voice to that of Ms. Arias' voice, we use a program called Waves Compression, where we can bring the voices to be equal. Because very often, if it's a telephone recording, the person speaking is very loud, and the person on the other end, it's very hard to hear. So
They should do this on more
so that you can hear it
recordings.
better, we normalize it and make it so that the audio files or the voice tracks are equal decibel level. That's it.
The last slide?
That's all I needed right there.
Oh, okay. Ultimately, when you finished enhancing this audio, did you put it onto a DVD?
Yes, I didn't show that because what I did is I added a time code. Now, a time code is for the jury. What it is when you're listening to audio, it's kind of boomy in here. You don't get the best acoustics.
Yeah,
so
if
there's a
you're
warning number on the screen.
supposed to watch your
that,
plants twice a week, do it while watching us.
There, and you write it down. And
We are
later,
a
if
plant
you
saving
ask, I
stream
can go back
also.
and replay that piece of audio because there's a time marker that you'll be able to see playing. It's called a time code. And I don't believe that's been entered in yet, so I didn't bring a slide for that. But that was the final process, was to take the audio and put a time code on it so that the jury could, if they had questions, identify parts of the audio they had questions with.
All right, and so a time code is just something you added, just timing the call.
Yeah, but they have to lay the foundation so that the prosecution can't question the validity.
All right, and was there any identifying information on this audio?
Pardon?
Was there any identifying information on this
Can you
audio?
be a little bit more specific?
How many people are talking?
2.
And does one person ever refer to the other?
Yes, the male refers to himself as missing.
Sustained.
Judge, may we approach?
You may. Objection overruled. You may continue.
All right, and when you finished, well, let me go back to that question. Does the male ever refer to the female by name?
Yes,
What does he call her?
he refers 3 times using the name Jodi.
Okay, and does the female ever refer to the male by name?
Yes,
And what does she call him?
she refers to the name Travis twice on the tape, and he refers to himself as Mr. Alexander.
Okay. When you finished your enhancement of the audio, did you give it back to Mr. Narmi and myself?
Yes,
How did you give it to us?
I put it on DVD with the time code.
Okay, Judge, may I approach? I'm showing what's marked as exhibit number 428. Is that the DVD that has the audio captured on it?
There was actually on Thursday, I just want to clarify, Thursday I did bring in a DVD.
Yes, Josie, this is the defense witness.
And it was agreed by all parties to redact 2 clips. So this is the modified DVD that has 5 of the 7 original clips that I received.
Okay, and is exhibit 428 the one that has 5 clips on it?
If this is the one I brought in today, correct?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you, Judge, nothing further.
You may.
Yeah, it seems to be.
The extra 2 clips, those have nothing to do with this case, is that correct?
I believe both counsel said that didn't have anything to do
Gene
with this.
XO, thank you for jumping in, saying hi.
So there was no reason for you to do it, to have it on the DVD?
That's correct.
Okay, all
It
right.
did not
thank you.
affect, it was not part of this case.
Okay, thank you.
Cross-examination.
So with regard to this particular DVD, you keep referring to counsel. It's true that the parties, including the state, agreed that the 2 individuals on there were Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to your examination was restricted to Mr. Travis Alexander's voice, comparing that to a known sound, right? Did you compare Mr. Alexander's voice on that DVD to his known sound?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Early on,
Yes or no?
yes, early on.
With regard to the defendant, you didn't make that same type of comparison, though, did you?
That's correct.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Redirect. Any questions from the jury for this witness? I see no hands. Thank you.
Okay, so they're not going to play it. This was just foundational. I thought they played it during Jodi's testimony.
Okay.
Please be seated. The record will show the jury has left the courtroom. Ms. Wilmot, the images on the screen.
Mr. Newman.
Thank you. You may come forward and take a seat, please.
Okay. Here we go.
Very excited.
Yeah.
She apparently has a leg brace on, which I didn't know, which locks her if she tries to run.
All right, you can line the jury up. Line up the jury.
Oh, that's why they brought out the jury so they wouldn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to go up to the stand first.
That was the defense witness. This is the defense case in chief.
Please be
Yep.
seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Nermi,
I believe Ms. Harris needs to be sworn.
calling your client.
Yes, the defense calls Jodi Arias.
Serious, please stand to be sworn.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do.
Please be seated. You may proceed.
Thank you. Hi, Jodi.
Hi.
How are you feeling right now?
Nervous.
Okay.
I want to ask you,
Yes, she was in custody.
let me
Jim.
ask you this. Is this a position you ever thought you would find yourself in, testifying here today?
The objection.
It's relevant.
Approach, please.
It's relevant. It goes to her state of mind, right?
Yeah.
No, because I'm innocent and I had to defend myself and blah, blah, blah. I mean,
Let me
maybe it
ask
calls for a
you-
narrative.
A couple of important questions before we get back and start talking about who you are and why you're here, okay?
Okay.
Did
Thank you,
kill
John.
Travis Alexander on June 4th, 2008?
Yes, I did.
Why?
The simple answer is that he attacked me, and I defended myself.
Okay. It was also brought up during these proceedings.
I don't know if I'd lead with that.
No.
You gave.
No.
an interview With Inside Edition. Do you remember seeing that tape?
Yes, I do.
And in that tape, you said that no jury would convict you, something to that effect. Do you remember seeing that? Remember saying that?
Yeah, I did say that.
Why?
I made that statement in September 2008, I believe it was. And at the time, I had plans to commit suicide. So I was extremely confident that no jury would convict me because I didn't expect any of you to be here. I didn't expect to be here, so I could have easily said no jury would acquit me either. I couldn't say that though because there was an officer sitting 5 feet behind me, and
Oh, for freak's sake. You got to be kidding me.
had I told them the reason no jury would convict me at that time, I would have been thrown into a padded cell and stripped down, and that would have been my life for a while until I stabilized.
I'm not sure that's how she meant it.
So I was very confident that no jury would convict me because I planned to be dead. Probably the most bitter words I'll ever eat.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said those are probably the most bitter words I'll ever eat.
That wasn't rehearsed.
No. And by the way, that's Travis' family. For you who wonder.
Sister, father, two sisters and the father.
Yeah.
Ms. Arias, I want to clarify another thing as well in the talking here. Your name has been pronounced in most of this trial, Arias. Is there another way of pronouncing it? Have you always pronounced it Arias?
I've heard it pronounced about 7 different ways. I say Arias, as does the rest of my family.
Okay. Well, let's back up a little bit and then talk about your family. Who's in your immediate family?
My immediate family consists of, I'm the oldest of my parents. They also had another son about 2 years after I was born, my brother. And then I have another younger sister and another
sympathy.
younger brother. I also have an older sister from a previous marriage of my father's.
She's trying to explain that she was
So
abused.
let me see if well, first of all, what are the names of your parents?
So the background,
Bill and Sandy Arias.
particularly,
say?
I think if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong, but I think she goes into the idea that she was abused by her father, and so that's why this is relevant. I think that's where they're going.
Okay, and the chat says it's not Travis' father in the background. He apparently passed away in 97.
Oh, okay, so maybe it was somebody else, but that's definitely his sisters.
Yeah.
Sitting next to them. Maybe a stepfather or something, because I thought he was sitting with his mother.
Mm.
And are they still married at this time?
Yes, about 33 years.
Okay. And you said you were the oldest child of Bill and Sandy, correct?
Yes.
And
Husband of
you
one of the sisters.
have a
Okay.
half sister that is older than you, is that right?
Yeah, she's 5 years older than me.
Okay. And that is your father's daughter?
Yes, from a previous marriage.
Okay. And you have a brother that's 2 years younger than you, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what is his name?
His name is Carl.
And you mentioned I believe the next youngest would have been another sister. What was her name?
Yes, Angela.
Okay. And your youngest brother, who is he?
Joseph.
Okay. And just so we get a bit of separation, how much younger than you is Angela?
Angela was born when I was 11, and Joseph was born when I was 13.
And what year were you born?
1980.
Oh,
Do you remember where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in a few different cities. I was born in Salinas, California, and I lived there until I was almost 12.
And what was life like in Salinas?
For the first years of my life, it was really good.
When you say that, before you continue, let's clarify. What do you mean by first years?
I would say until about age 7, it was a fairly ideal childhood.
Okay, different people have different meanings when they say ideal, so why don't you describe for us what you mean by ideal childhood?
I have predominantly positive memories of my childhood at that time. My brother and I lived when I was about 4 years old, we moved to a house in a cul-de-sac. We had the center lot, so it was a huge backyard, and we had a lot of places to play there. There were trees to climb. There were other kids in the neighborhood and in the cul-de-sac that we played with. We were close in age, so my family traveled a lot. We went camping. We went to all the theme parks in California.
Did you go to school?
Of course, yes, I went to school.
And you went to grade school in Salinas then?
Yes, I went to a private school for about 3 years and then a public school.
Were you and Carl in school together, or did you go to different schools?
We were in school together. I was held back in kindergarten, so even though we're 2 years apart, he was only 1 grade behind me.
And tell us about your parents at that time, to your recollection. Were they both working? Was your mom at home? Tell us about that.
Yeah, when I was younger, I remember my mom used to work. I guess she was working as a server with my dad. He owned restaurants my whole life. And then when I was around 11 or 12, she became a dental assistant.
Okay. And you mentioned your life was, well, let me ask you a question. Do you remember what your interests were as a child?
Yes, I had pets, cats, dog, fish. I had a rat. I loved animals. We had a lot of pets. My brother had frogs, things like that. We played a lot of hopscotch and two square when we were younger. We went roller skating. They didn't really have rollerblades yet, or at least that we used. We rode bikes a lot. We did a lot of camping. I'm sorry, I kind of forgot the question.
All right. Well, you're speaking very quietly. Are you nervous today?
Yeah, yes, I am.
What's that?
Yes,
Okay.
very nervous.
Could you do me a favor and pull the mic a little closer to you? Jodi, one of the things that you said a couple questions ago when we were speaking is that your life was pretty ideal up until about age 7. Is something different after age 7, or?
It seemed like, well, my parents would just, spank us or hit us as discipline. So it seemed like at age 7, around then, it started getting a little bit more intense. That's something I remember.
Okay. You said they started spanking you.
Well, I was spanked before on occasion. Just it seemed like the frequency and the intensity of it increased around that age.
What do you mean by that, frequency and intensity?
Well, just there were, I think that's the first year my dad started using a belt. My mom began to carry a wooden spoon in her purse.
Come on, I got the green plastic
May
spoon.
we approach?
May? Objection overruled.
Okay. Prosecution will apparently object a whole
Jodi,
lot.
if you could,
Morning,
first of all,
Corn Pope.
do us all a favor again.
Hey, Corn
I know
Pope.
it's
Hey.
difficult. I know you're nervous. You've told us before. But
I
if
saw
you could
the
just
expert
speak up
earlier
a
as
little
well.
louder, make sure everybody can hear you. Okay?
Okay.
You were just now telling us that your mother carried a spoon with her. What did she do with that spoon?
It was a wooden kitchen spoon that she would keep in her purse. And if we were misbehaving, my brother and I, this was before Angela and Joseph were born, although it continued through that point. If we were misbehaving, she would use it on us. Sometimes she would pull the car over and, if we were just being brats or something.
What do you mean by use it on you?
She would hit us with it.
She hit you hard?
It felt pretty hard, yes. It left welts.
It left welts on your body?
Yes.
When your dad hit you with the belt, did that leave welts on your body?
Rephrase.
You told us that your dad hit you with the belt
Yes.
after age 7.
Yes.
Did he leave welts?
He didn't leave welts as often as my mom. She also used a belt. My dad was very intimidating, so I don't think he needed to hit us quite as hard to get the point across. My mom didn't carry that fear factor with her, so I think she used more force. So her blows felt a lot worse, actually.
Physically or emotionally?
Both.
You loved your mother?
Yes.
And she
I did.
hit you.
Yes.
You said that these were frequent, these incidents where your mother would hit you, they were frequent and intense. I think those are your words, right?
They were definitely intense, but they increased in frequency
Okay.
as I got a little older.
Can you discern for us how many times a week your mother would beat you with this spoon?
I don't recall how many times particularly, but it seemed like it could go anywhere from 4 times a week to once every 2 weeks. It just depended.
Okay. Now, how long did you live in Salinas? How old were you?
I was born there and I lived there until age 11.
Okay. So let me ask you this, that you talked about these beatings that began at age 7 when you lived in Salinas. Tell us about the next few years before you left Salinas. Did you continue going to school?
It's amazing how
that sort of thing? Tell us
spanks,
about that.
Yes, I went to a
her
public
testimony was
school.
spanking, and that turned into beating, conveniently, right? As if that's a justification here. But okay.
Yeah, but she doesn't have much choice because I don't think prior to the trial anything of this was either known or testified to, or even after, when I just checked just briefly, okay, was Jodi Arias abused as a child? But apparently this is the absolute first time in this trial that anybody knew or heard of it. So
yeah, and Bobby Bologna, yeah, I had a really good reason to do it. Normally when people have a self-defense reason, they kind of come out the gate with that, right? This is pretty bad.
Had a lot of friends. My brother was at that school too, and he had his own circle of friends. And we would just do things together, school activities, after school activities. And
Activities, what were your interests at this point in time in your life?
I began to get into art. Again, my pets were very central in my life at that time. I began to read a lot of books. I took piano lessons. My brother and I took karate lessons. He learned the clarinet. I learned the flute, things like that, just general.
Okay. Do me a favor, because when you say the word art, it can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people in terms of art. It's a pretty broad area. So were there certain areas of the art world that you were interested in, or can you describe that for us?
Yeah, when I was younger, I liked to color with Crayolas. And my older sister and I would color, and there were a lot of colors. She had the big box with all of the Crayolas. And so we would draw pictures and just watch cartoons and that kind of thing. So I would have coloring books, and I just began to take an interest in that because I wasn't able to draw what I saw, but I would see art, and it would fascinate me. So I slowly began to practice doing that.
Ooh, and I have one of her artworks.
Now, at this point in time, did the beatings from your mother and father, did they continue?
Yes.
Did they increase in nature?
They began to increase, I'd say, all the way through my teenage years.
Did they increase? You've talked about frequency and severity. Did the level of the brutality increase?
Yes, my brother and I we didn't like being hit. I know I didn't. So we would squirm around a little, and so the more we squirmed, the harder they would try to whack us. So just as that progressed, things
You're
would
supposed to
increase,
lay there and take it.
At one point, I don't think she meant to, but my mom broke my brother's vein in his wrist because he was putting his hand behind his back to block one of her blows. And, as I became a teenager, my dad would get rougher and rougher.
If you heard anything weird, that was a tractor and a lorry going by because it started raining, so everybody's moving their equipment in from collecting hay. So
I was going to say, I was going to take an opportunity of the break. I didn't hear anything at all, though, by the way.
Okay. Oh, good.
But since I can't put a poll up in both chats, if you were spanked as a child and as a result of it, you committed murder, please put a 1 in the chat. That would be great. I'm just, rough.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And if you're watching from prison, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Jodi, if you are there.
We're gonna have a Jodi A pop in with a 1.
22112269. Okay.
Corn Pope, which we I believe. Wait, if you were spanked and committed murder, you're supposed to put a 1.
Yeah.
And committed murder as a result of your spanking, you're supposed to put a 1.
Okay, so
Okay.
in my chat,
Just so we know the rules.
Julie O, Corn Pope, and Will Call Magic. Yeah.
Don't admit to murders, guys.
David, are all our audience from inside the prison?
I feel like they might be now.
That might explain the lack of super chats and stuff like that.
0.5. See that? This excuse, and I know. Like, there can be a connection between your childhood and maybe some of the crimes that you're committed of. A good example of that is Megan Emirowitz, right? Where she was, it was obviously a really bad family situation as a result of her father's alcoholism and everything going on, the hoarding and just the mess that it was. And yes, she was convicted of causing her father's death. And as a result of her childhood and her rearing, the court kind of went easy on her in the sentencing, but it didn't get her off the hook, right? It's just sort of kind of a mitigating factor.
Yeah. So this speech should have been better at sentencing, but yeah. And I mean, over here in Sweden, when I was a kid, it was still legal to spank your children, but that only happened twice, I think, when I was really bad. But
it's illegal to spank, period.
Yeah, nowadays, since 1980, I think, illegal to physically discipline your children in Sweden.
Everyone who says Sweden is a socialist state, it's not really. It's a nanny state. Is really what it is. It's a nanny state.
It's not. It's more of a bureaucracy than a democracy.
But it's very much like, we're going to make sure everybody is safe, so you can't do these things, you can't do this, you can do this, but only in limited. So everyone's got to be safe. It's a nanny state.
Yeah. And for instance, the last 20 years, there has been from center-right government, center-left government, and at the moment we have a right naturalist government, but we are still a nanny state, because nobody with a government official job wants anything to change.
Matt says, some of us have to put 12,000 clothespins together for a $3 super chat, and then Wendy super chatted in response for Matt's clothespins. Thank you very much for the $9.99 super chat, Wendy, and in honor of Matt's.
So yeah, but I do think that sometimes if you exchange physical discipline, now I don't compare. Spanking and hitting are two different things for me. But if you exchange, okay, I can't do that. But how will the verbal go? Because people can get really nasty with words against kids.
Oh, well, so you can, we can go down a rabbit hole on a conversation about that. But as a general rule, across the 50 states, a general rule, you can use corporal discipline against a child so long as you don't leave any lasting marks, right? That's the key, is lasting marks. What that looks like, each case is different. And right now, I think, except for maybe probably California and New York or something like that, there's no such thing as verbal abuse. So,
yeah, and verbal abuse can sometimes be extremely nasty towards kids, because then they will learn that kind of language towards their loved ones.
Mona G says, I wonder how bad you were that mom actually had to take out the wooden spoon. I don't know, but I remember the wooden spoon. I don't know what I did, but I remember. And my mom's probably in the chat right now saying, I didn't take the wooden spoon. It was a green plastic one.
Putting clothespins. I have no idea what this is.
I don't know either. I don't get it. I thought it was a prison thing. I have no idea.
No, I have no idea.
See, I don't remember the verbal over the physical. I remember the physical. I remember things that I have said that I have felt bad for after having said them, but not things that are said to me.
Now, my mother was really, really ill for most of my childhood. And what I don't remember the harsh words. I do remember the silence when she just looked at me and walked away. That hurt. Darn it, that hurt. When she wouldn't even talk to me. So it's don't kill your children, okay? Maybe belt or spoon might be an excess. My dad knocked me out one time, but I was 16 and extremely disrespectful. And but yeah, he picked me up when I was drunk as a 16-year-old and said, "Your mother is worried sick," and I said something of the effect of "screw mom," and then I woke up at home, and I deserved it. I deserved it.
I may or may not have had something similar, but yeah, I mean, again, I remember more of the bad things that I have said that I regret, not so much the verbal abuse. Either way, it doesn't really excuse murder, right? That was kind of where I started with this. It could be a mitigating factor for, say, sentencing or something, but it doesn't excuse it.
No, because my mother spanked me hard when I was a kid, and therefore I grew up to be a killer. No, I mean, the mindset to actually kill someone, even under attack, you'd need to have that. Because, for instance, for an example, World War II, even armed people did not fire back.
Yeah, or they shot over heads. They did that study. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe less than 50% of the guns used in World War II was ever fired.
They did a study, retroactive study of the Civil War soldiers even, and some of them had like 6 or 7 rounds just jammed in on top of each other, and they never fired them once.
Yeah. So getting to the state that you actually can end someone, that's a step very few can take deliberately. Very few.
Yep. All right, let's hear more about the tragedy that is Jodi Arias here.
Yeah.
Or at least in her mind.
Before we go on to rougher and rougher, let me ask you this, and I'm not simply talking physically. How did they feel? How did you feel when your own mother was beating you?
When I was younger, I remember feeling, I didn't have a word for it then, but I can describe it as betrayed and confused. And as I got a little bit older, it would just really make me mad because I didn't get why. I don't know, I understood that I was being punished, but I would just be mad at her a lot over that because it hurt.
Because you still loved her?
Yeah, I loved my mom.
Even though she was still beating you, you still loved her?
Yes, it put a strain on our relationship, but I still loved her, of course.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
I still loved her.
Loved?
Going back to what you said a few minutes ago about your dad and the beatings getting rougher and rougher. Could you describe for us what you mean by that?
Yeah, he never beat me with his fists or anything, but he would just shove me into furniture, sometimes into the piano or things like that, into tables, chairs, desks, whatever was around. He would just push me really hard and I would go flying into that. One time I hit a doorpost. The side of my head hit the doorpost and it knocked me out momentarily. I just remember waking up on the ground with, my mom was there. We were all arguing. I was arguing with my mom and he got involved. And so I remember waking up and she was telling him to be careful.
And this incident you just described about you passing out or knocking into a door frame or doorpost, as you described it, Do you remember how old you were when this happened?
By then I was age 17, maybe 16, but I think I was 17.
Chandler, good morning
Let's
from
back up a
Houston.
little bit because you talked about instances of you being pushed into furniture and a piano, like it was just like nothing to it. Did this happen a lot?
Not as often with my dad as with my mom, but it just, I don't know, if I did something to upset them, it would happen. Sometimes I got grounded. That became more the norm in high school, so the physical punishment was a little bit more farther apart, but more intense than it was prior.
At this time that you were getting these beatings from your dad, did you love him as well?
Yes, of course.
In this time period now, you said you moved from Salinas about age 11?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you move to?
We moved to Santa Maria, California.
And I know we talked about this is where in Santa Maria, your dad was pushing you into furniture, right? Is this where these things
Yeah,
were
these
taking
things
place?
really started in Santa Maria.
Okay. And was that where you went to, would that have been your junior high years, if I follow that correctly?
Yeah, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Okay. And did you go to school with Carl then?
I did.
The strategy here, sympathy from the jury, making them feel sorry for her, I would assume. Bad upbringing, then they will, later on, they will try to paint Travis as a really bad person. They have already started that with previous testimony. So that would be the self-defense strategy here, I would assume.
And what were your interests at that point in time?
At that point, I was really focused on trying to make new friends. That was kind of difficult. In 6th grade, I went to an elementary school, and then in 7th grade, I went to another new school it was called junior high school, then it's now middle school, I guess. But so it seemed like I was constantly going to new schools. There was this new school, then another new school, and then, then we moved again. And so it was just hard to make friendships. I did make a few close friends though.
Okay. Well, you mentioned earlier that in your grade school years, you had an interest in art.
Yes.
Okay. Did that continue through junior high?
Definitely. I don't remember so much in 6th grade focusing on my art, but in junior high, I took an art class, maybe 2 art classes, both years. And I had a really cool art teacher, and he mentored me.
Okay. Let me ask you, as it relates to your parents, how was your interest in art received? Did they encourage that? How was it received by your parents?
They didn't discourage me by any means, but they were lukewarm, I'd say.
I don't like this
They weren't really
order
moved
of
by it.
questions.
I was getting a lot of praise.
No,
C-Swep says she's not coming off very believable, but I believe that's more of the tone of the attorney, the order of the questions, the phrasing of the questions. I just don't like it at all. I don't like any of this.
Yeah. Because now she's describing a past that many people have. And 99% will not grow up to kill someone. So this might be counteractive. And
yeah.
Well, maybe not all the alleged abuse, but being spanked with a spoon or a belt. I mean, in the United States, that's not really that uncommon. And most don't grow up to be a killer.
Right. I just don't like this line of questioning at all.
Yeah. For instance, Jeffrey Dahmer was never abused by his parents. That didn't work well. um, no, Brandon, David likes Prosecco, and yeah, okay, ultralight beer, and then he will call the
Michelob
court.
Ultra and Prosecco.
Yeah, and then he will call the court and complain.
One works better than the other.
Yep. So David gets a white girl drunk, and with enough Prosecco, he goes Karen.
Right. No, I don't go Karen. I never go Karen. I'm a happy drunk.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. And then you call the court.
From my classmates and my art teacher and other people, but I didn't really get that from them. They were just a little bit indifferent, but not disappointed.
Was that hard for you not to get encouragement from your parents?
It didn't really bother me at that time. I would think it was kind of the norm, so I was accustomed to it.
Okay. By that time in your life, you were used to them not fostering how your interests, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Did your parents ever show any interest as you were growing up in your artwork? Did they ever foster your interest in art?
They did minimally at one point. I think this was after I moved to Santa Maria. I was enrolled in one art class, which was after school, and it lasted a few weeks. I created a few pieces, a few projects, and I remember other family members being more encouraging. I have a cousin who's a very accomplished artist, and he complimented my work, and that was in the presence of my parents. So
Okay.
they never really went out of their way to, display it or anything like that. But
All right. And where did you go to high school?
I went to high school after 8th grade. We moved to Northern California, to Yreka, and I went to Yreka Union High School.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You said
It's
Yreka
called,
something.
at least when I was there, it's called Yreka Union High School.
Okay. And I'll ask this because it's different in different places. What grades were you in when you entered Yreka High School?
That school is grades 9 through 10. I'm sorry, 9 through 12.
Okay. So what years then did you enter? Did you enter in your freshman year or later?
Freshman year.
And so you were starting off at a new school again in high school, right?
Yes.
Okay. And just to give us a sense of things, how far was Yreka from?
Yes,
Santa
it is.
Maria,
Yep.
where you moved from?
I don't know the mileage, but
Yeah, this attorney got disbarred.
let's see, from Salinas to Santa Maria, it's 8 hours.
Yeah, we have talked about this on previous streams, but yes, the defense lawyer got himself disbarred after the trial when he released a tell-all book about
Breach
Jodi
of
and the trial.
attorney-client privilege tends to get you disbarred.
Yeah, and she did sue him, but I can't find the result of that lawsuit. So my guess it settled out of court.
Probably for a percentage of the profits of the book.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yep.
And then, I'm sorry, Salinas to Yreka is 8 hours, and then Santa Maria is another 3 hours south.
So you were several hours.
Over 10
away from
hours,
your
yeah,
friends,
over 10, yeah.
Did you know anybody at Yreka High School when you were going?
I didn't know anybody when I moved there, but my mother went to, I don't know if she went to school with or knew another woman about her age who had a daughter my age that was going into high school as well. So we hung out a little bit during the summer, so I knew her and her sister, but that was it.
Just a couple of people.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned when you moved to, based on what you told us before, we correct in understanding that the beatings, the pushing of the furniture, that sort of thing with your dad continued throughout your high school years.
Yes.
Were those the incidents you were talking about before, about being pushed into the post and the furniture, or were there other incidents?
That happened when I was in high school. There were a few things that happened right before we moved. A bunch of friends and I one night decided, like the last night I was there, we decided to sneak out of the house and hang out. And my parents woke up and found out. So when I came back, my dad asked where I'd been, and I had fallen asleep. He woke me up around 6. And so when I sat up and I was disoriented because I had been sleeping. So I didn't give him a satisfactory answer. So he hit me across the face and I fell back down. And then he sat me back up and asked me again. And I didn't give him a satisfactory answer. So he hit me across the face again and fell down.
When you say he hit you across the face, did he punch you?
No, it
Yes,
wasn't
it's very
open-handed.
unemotional describing
Hard
this.
Do you recall, did you bleed?
No, I didn't. Not that I recall.
Did you bruise?
Not that I recall.
Did it hurt?
Yes.
Just so we can clarify as well, your dad's a pretty big guy, right?
He was very big at that time. His health he's frail now, but he was very big at the time.
Can you give us an idea of how tall and how much he weighed at that time?
I don't know his weight, but he's about 5'11". He used to bench press 520 pounds. He was a really big guy for a while.
You said he used to bench press 500 something pounds.
520, yes.
Was that a hobby of his, weightlifting, or can you describe that for us?
Yes, he was very much into weightlifting. He had, I guess it was like a Bowflex machine at home. I think it was called Soloflex. It was one from like the 80s, but he would use that a lot to work out. He was into martial arts. We watched a lot of movies like that. Things like that. He went to the gym frequently.
To your knowledge, was your mom aware? I know you mentioned the one incident where your mom was present. Was your mom aware of your dad beating you?
Well, when she was present, yes, of course. Sometimes we were on road trips together, and they would take turns if they, had to pull the car over or something. Not that it happened several times in one trip, but I remember it being both my mom and my dad punishing me.
Yeah, it sounds very rehearsed.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, when she was gone, I assume they would talk about
Not
it.
much emotions.
Okay.
She doesn't.
We talked a little bit about
notes
your
or
dad during
anything.
high
She's
school,
just
your mom
repeating
with the
something.
wooden spoon. In your younger years, did your mom's beatings with the wooden spoon, did they continue in high school as well?
They continued for a short time, but I think as I turned 16, 17, I don't recall her carrying the wooden spoon around. She would just start grabbing whatever was available, like a hairbrush, or she had acrylic nails, so sometimes she would grab me and dig her nails into my skin, things like that.
Okay. In high school, what were some of your interests?
In high school, I was very interested in learning Spanish, so I took that all throughout high school and middle school. I was getting into art. I was excited to get my driver's license. I traveled abroad to Costa Rica to learn Spanish better. I had a few friends. I didn't really make a lot of close friends like I had before. It just seemed like I was.
No, because
constantly making
everybody
friends
heard
and
your
then moving
stories
away.
and moved on.
So
Yeah.
Sustained.
Did you have a lot of friends in high school?
I had a large circle of friends, but nobody I was very close with.
Would I be correct in assuming that your interest in art by the time you're in high school moved beyond the Crayola crayon phase?
Yeah, very much so.
Tell us about that.
I was at my grandmother's house one day and she had an old set of oil paint, and I knew what oil paint was. I'd never worked in that medium before, so I didn't know what I was doing. I just took a piece of printer paper and started painting oil paint on this paper, and oil began to spread around the paint. So I figured, okay, that's not going to work. So I went to Michael's, the arts and crafts store, and bought some supplies and began to experiment with that and started painting.
And did you work during high school?
I did. My dad owned a restaurant at the north end of town. It's now a Mexican restaurant, but he owned it then, and I would work as a server there from the time I was a freshman on through, I think, 96 or 7 when he closed it.
So you started working in 9th grade. How old were you in 9th grade?
In 9th grade, I was 15.
And was there a certain amount of days you worked while you were in high school?
Oh, this
He put me on
this
a few
shouldn't be as
afternoons
boring as
and
it is.
Yeah.
He's just talking over stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah. This should be a part of sentencing to reduce years from a sentence, not as feel sorry for me. My dad was abusive and he hired me to work for him as a server. And as a server, you're supposed to not have bruises and stuff. There's a bit of...
We have 51 weeks, you said? 51 streams of this, of her on the stand? I hope it's... Well, I know it's not going to be when I get the cross. Or the jury questions. And we are going to get the phone sex tapes.
I think we have... I believe we can get to the end of her entirety on the stand just around Christmas.
Okay. But it's not all going to be like this. I know this is foundational. I just wish he would cut to the point.
Brandon, she is 18 days is the number I've heard.
Yeah.
But that includes direct, cross, redirect, recross jury questions.
Yes. And assuming we get about a day of testimony per week. So we're thinking like 18 weeks or so, maybe a little more.
Yeah. So we should be, yeah.
Thanks.
No, they are laying out the foundation of her being...
No, I didn't.
Abused as a child.
Yeah.
Why didn't you graduate?
Searching for abusive relationships, maybe.
At the time, about 3 months, well, it's kind of complicated.
Okay. Well, let's
Should I turn it up to 1.25?
Yeah, we can try.
Yeah.
Did you drop out of high school?
Yes, I did.
Where were you living at the time you dropped out of high school?
I was living with my boyfriend at the time, about a little town 6 miles outside of Wairika.
Let's break it. Why did you leave? Prior to that, were you living with your parents?
Yes.
Why did you leave your parents' home to go live with your boyfriend?
I was kind of becoming tired of the discipline, and I was 3 months until I was 18. And one day they decided to ground me until I was 18 because I skipped one period in high school because there was a final for my, I was taking a college history class, US history, and I didn't feel like I had adequately studied for the exam, so I skipped that period to study for the exam and decided I would make it up the next day. So I parked my car in the parking lot of Rite Aid and just cracked open the book, and I was studying it for that hour. And my dad, somehow he found me. It's a small town. So I guess the school notified him that I wasn't present for that class. So he found me. And at that point, they didn't use physical discipline that day, but I was grounded till I was 18. So I couldn't fathom being grounded for 3 months. When you were grounded in my house, it meant no phone, no TV, no friends, no social functions of any kind. You're in your room, period. So
let me ask you this. This would have been towards the end of your senior year in high school, or was this at the end of your
it was in May, I think.
Okay, so of your senior year or of your junior year?
Maybe April. My junior year, yes.
So you dropped out of high school before you finished your junior year, is that right?
No, I did finish the junior year, mostly with D's and F's, because toward the end of the year, I just let it all fall apart.
You mentioned discipline, you talked about grounding. Was there any particular physical incident or an incident of abuse that motivated you to leave your parents' home?
One of the incident I described where I was knocked against, I called it a doorpost, I guess it's a door frame. Then at that point the guy I was dating, we started talking about me possibly moving in with him. So after that incident, I began to surreptitiously pack boxes of my things and start moving them out to his house. And then when they grounded me until I was 18, all of my stuff mostly was there. And I thought, I'm just gonna go ahead. I was gonna wait until I was 18 to move in with him, but it was 3 months away and it just made sense to me at the time as a 17-year-old. So I just moved out.
Okay.
She moved out at 17.
After your junior year, then, did you just not go back to school? Is that?
How old
I turned
was her
18 that
boyfriend she
summer.
lived with?
I got a job at another
50-some,
restaurant and began working there full time. I had bills to pay now, car insurance and credit cards and that kind of thing. So to me, it made more sense to work so I could support myself and my boyfriend. He didn't have a job.
And what was your boyfriend's name?
His name was Bobby
What was his last name?
Juarez.
And Mr. Juarez, how old was he in relation to you?
He was 3 years older than me.
So he would have been out of school, I would assume?
Yes, he was out of high school.
And what
That's
did
the
he,
first boyfriend she lived with.
He
Then she met
Had
the
never been employed at that point. So,
40-something guy.
it was an isolated town we lived in and it was difficult to obtain employment.
well, let me ask you this, as it relates to Mr. Juarez, when did you meet him?
I first met him the first summer that I moved to Wairika when I was 15. The carnival comes to town, and so I was there with the girl I'd mentioned that my mom introduced me to. Her and her sister, we were there. And I saw him walking in a crowd with a few other friends, and he caught my eye. He was very intriguing looking. He was kind of dressed like 18th century goth, kind of. He was.
Well, can you describe for some of us who may not follow that reference, just kind of describe what he was wearing? Maybe?
Yeah, it was like July or August when I met him, and it's in the maybe triple digits in the temperature. It's very hot. Wairika gets really hot, not quite like the desert, but in the triple digits in the summer. But this guy was dressed in a black suit and a high collar white shirt, and he was on crutches. He had long, dark, curly hair, and he just seemed intriguing to me. So I remember seeing him walk by, and I didn't approach him or anything, but I noticed him. So we spent the day there, my friends and I walking around, and at one point they were getting in line for the zipper. I didn't want to get on the zipper. There was only 2 per cage anyway, so I was kind of the third odd one out. So I just stood next to the line waiting for them to go on the zipper and come back. But I was just looking around and I caught his eye again and he was looking right at me. And he motioned for me to come over. He went like that. And I didn't know if he was talking to me. So I kind of looked around and looked at him again and he did it again. So I walked up to him and he said, in a very kind way, he said, "Do you want to go?" Oh, sorry.
15.
Let me ask you this without telling you what he said, and just to clarify a bit based on what you told us, he would have been around the age of 18 at this time, right?
Yes.
And you were 15. You meet him at a state fair.
Yes.
Thing. Okay. Tell us then, do you begin a relationship at that point in time, or just kind of describe for us how that relationship was at that time?
No, he invited me to go on the zipper with him. So we went on one ride with that and talked a little bit as we were flipping around. And after that we parted and I didn't see him again for a while.
Okay. When did you see him again?
I think it was October, maybe November of that same year. I was at a homecoming football game for my high school and I saw him again and he was with some friends. And I was really shy, but I wanted to say hi to him. So I walked up to him and said, "Do you remember me?" And he said he remembered me, but he couldn't remember my name. So I told him I didn't remember his name either. So we kind of reintroduced ourselves and he said, "Tell me your phone number and I promise
She
I'll
played
remember
with the
it." So I
zipper.
gave him the house phone, which was my parents' phone. We didn't have cell phones. And he remembered it and called me.
Did you begin dating at that time?
No, we were just friends. We talked for a while. We weren't dating. He was actually seeing a girl, I think. I don't remember.
Okay. So you were just friends for a period of time?
Yeah, several months. We were just friends.
Yeah, but you were telling us he became your boyfriend at that point, so I'm assuming at some point in time that you two began dating.
Yeah, the girl broke up with him, and there was a period of time where he was single and I was single, and we started just talking more and more. And then I think it was on New Year's that followed that year when I was a freshman, we decided to become boyfriend girlfriend.
Okay.
Yes, so this is the one that survived.
And then,
Yeah.
He testified.
Yeah.
Right?
And according to statements I've heard, that he's still kind of in love with him, in love with her.
Yeah, it sounds like it. He was drawn in by those 3 holes.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Not as this testimony is not as entertaining, but it's foundational towards what is going to happen later on. So just as in any other trial, this is her story, and she will tell it as she wishes, with the help from her attorney. But sooner or later, there's a cross-examination and stuff like that. But we need the foundations first.
you said that was your the beginning of your sophomore year?
I would have still been a freshman then.
Okay. And you said you were going to become boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, you guys decided that. Was he still in high school at that point in time?
No, he was out of high school.
And to your recollection, was he working at that point in time?
No, he wasn't working.
Describe for us then what being boyfriend and girlfriend at that stage in your life meant for you and Mr. Juarez.
For us, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a driver's license yet. I think I was getting my permit that year. So he would come to town. And so during lunch, a lot of kids would leave campus, and there's a small gas station, USA gas station near the high school. So I would walk down there and he would be there. There was an arcade there, and he really liked video games. So we would meet there and just hang out, hold hands, that kind of thing.
Okay. How long at this point in time, how long did you date Bobby continuously from the time that you were 15 till you moved out of the home?
No, we stayed together for a while, and I think at age 15, I felt like the relationship was getting very intense. He was talking about being together forever, and I loved him, but I didn't feel like I was in love with him. And I knew at age 15, there's no way I could decide who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with at that point. So
15?
He wanted
Did
to
you say
move to
15?
San Francisco, and
Yeah, apparently
he
this
had all
wasn't
kinds
the
of
older
wild
guy at
ideas,
17.
which they seemed
I'm lost now.
fun, but they were just
Yeah.
not where I was. So at that point, I broke up with him.
What do you mean wild ideas?
No house, no job, no car.
Well, he entertained the belief in vampires, and he thought, well, let's go to San Francisco and see if we can find some real vampires. And, I used to read Anne Rice novels at the time. It seemed
Vampires.
like it didn't seem realistic
And
to
then-
me, but it seemed like it was just an idea.
We
that I
have
would go
the
along with.
real killer from the Stout case.
That's right.
And this was at a time when you were about 15 years of age. You wanted to move to San Francisco and hunt vampires, right?
So yes, we could live together forever and be together forever.
Of course she was into
there a certain
vampires
point
and
in
Anne Rice
time then
novels.
when this was going on, and you said it was getting too intense for
Yeah.
you? Did you and Mr. Juarez?
Vampires 2008. When was what's that movie franchise
Oh,
called?
Twilight? I don't know when that came out.
I have to check. Twilight.
Like Interview with the Vampire was Anne Rice. And that's when she
Oh,
kicked
no.
off. And that was like 96 or something, 94, 95.
First Twilight movie was 2008.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
but
wonder if she got to see it or if she was in lockup.
yeah, but that was 2008 when she was 15 with this guy. That must have been vampire.
2008 was when she did the stabby.
Yeah.
To Travis. So this was before then.
Yes, it was one afternoon. I broke up with him on the phone. I don't know where my parents were, but my Aunt Lisa was at the house. She was picking my brother and I up. I was having this conversation with him. He was very upset. And Lisa wanted us to leave. She wanted to take us. We had to go somewhere with her. So I didn't have time to stay on the phone with him for a long time and talk through it with him. So I had to sort of abruptly end the phone call shortly thereafter. And it was, I don't know, I guess he didn't take that well.
Okay. What do you mean by you guess he didn't take it that well?
I found out a few years later that he
Approach. Overruled, you may continue.
Sorry, Ms. Harris. I was described, we were asking, you said you understood that Mr. Juarez didn't take the breakup you had when you were about 15 so well. Describe for us what you mean by that.
I learned a few years later that he slit both of his wrists and tried to kill himself, and he was committed to some kind of psychiatric ward in Citrus Heights, just north of Sacramento.
Okay. Did you have, after this phone call where you broke up and you left the home, did you have any sort of relationship with him in between that and the well, let me ask you this way. It sounds like he was your boyfriend again about the time when you turned 18, right? A few months
Yes.
beforehand? Okay. How did that come about?
We didn't talk at that point for a few years. It's kind of silly. There was this older man that used to come into my parents' restaurant. I'd say he was in his 60s, maybe 70s, and he always had his Bible. And it was a small pocket version of the New Testament, and he had it all marked up, and he was always, quoting Bible scripture and things. And
What a Bible, sex, and murder have
in the Bible,
such a tie to each other in some of these cases.
Yeah. Well, the Bible does have a few examples of genocide and stuff like that, but not in the New Testament.
Not in the New Testament, but it just always seems like people that are thumping the Bible tend to be the ones that are engaging in activities that the Bible says you probably shouldn't be.
Yeah. Not your average Bible reader, but the actual Bible thumpers.
Yeah, the Bible thumpers.
I mean, you can use it as a guideline or everything. Believe everything or part of it. I don't really care about that thing. But once you pick it up and say, you have to do this, how about fuck off?
Right.
I mean, and that I don't care if you are carrying the Bible or the whatever book. If your book tells me you can order me to do something, I will tell you to fuck off.
Brandon, I will happily come to your Bible study group. There are two topics that I absolutely love talking about. One is politics and the other is religion. Set it up. I'll be there.
But I will probably not do that on stream.
and determined that he knew when the second coming was going to occur. And he said it was going to occur September 23rd, 1997. So I was really naive and I kind of believed him. So he would come in weekly or several times a week on my shift and continue to reiterate that. So, I mean, at the time I was non-denominational Christian and this seemed important. So I thought that Bobby should know about it because at the time he wasn't religious and he was uncertain about his spirituality, at least when I last had known him. So to me, it was important that he at least hear that information so he could make a decision for himself. So I made contact with him again and called him in.
Me and Dave have a tiny competition. Who gets the most likes on their stream when we are dual streaming?
So is that our competition now?
Yeah, well, we have a competition when it comes to subscribers and super chats and stuff
Just
like that.
Always competing, that's all.
Yeah, it's a friendly competition, and as long as I win.
What are we at right now, actually? I'm trying to look. So you have 55. Well, I might have to refresh it. You have 55, and I have 60. Yay, 61.
Oh. Okay, so everybody who is at David's stream, just pop on over and give me a like. And if you're inclined, remove your like from David's channel. Just kidding, but yep, friendly competition.
That's
as
right.
long as I win.
I think mid-September 2007.
Okay. And if David wins, there was no competition to start with.
Clear. In terms of your high school years, how long of a break, I guess, was there between this phone call that you made to break up with Mr. Juarez?
No, don't click twice on the like button.
Recontact him. How long of a break was there between this?
I'd say, let's see, maybe 19 months.
Thank you,
So
Kitty.
you make this phone call to Mr. Juarez, and you said this was in 1997?
Yes.
Okay. And where would you have been in school then? Would you be junior year? Or?
I was just starting my junior year.
Okay. And subsequent to this phone call, did you begin to you made a friendship with Mr. Juarez. Tell us about how that evolved.
Well, when I first called, he answered the phone. I could recognize his voice. And I said, is Bobby there? And he said, yeah, who's this? And I said, Jodi. And I immediately heard a click. So I left it alone and I thought, okay, because our last phone call some years back didn't end well. And so the next night I tried one more time and the same thing happened. So I left it alone. And about,
Let me ask you this before we continue. You mentioned that Wairika was a pretty small town, right?
yes,
Okay. You never ran into Mr. Juarez in between these two phone calls?
no, he didn't live in Wairika. He lived in Montague, which is 6 miles from Wairika. It's even smaller. I think there's about 1,000 people in that town.
Okay. But never during this time did you run into him at all?
No.
Okay. And I'm sorry, you talked about you called him a couple times, you hit a click on the other end of the phone. How does the relationship progress from that point?
I don't know how many days later. It was under a week, maybe 4 days, maybe 5 days. I was on the phone with a friend of mine.
Hi, Angst Kitten. Who is Bobby? That's, I would assume, is her first boyfriend.
Yeah, I think it was her first boyfriend that she was contemplating getting serious with. He's still alive as well. She wants to point that out.
Yeah, most of her ex-boyfriends are still alive.
Yes.
Yeah, and I believe she was 15 and he was 17, and didn't work out. Imagine that. That seems to be the center of her defense. Is all my other boyfriends are still alive, but this one didn't make it because he attacked me, and I had to stab him 27 times and then shoot him, and then try to hide the crime. And again, had her biggest mistake in all of this, she called the cops and put herself in the investigation.
Yep. Yeah, that was the biggest thing. She put a target on her for the investigation, which then led to connecting all the dots in the photographs, which was her. Well, that was actually her first big mistake, was leaving the camera behind.
Yeah, leaving the camera behind. But if she hadn't called, leaving the camera behind, I believe the only pictures were her, all of her, and yeah, but that could have been explained away by a good defense attorney. The
Kitten
photo
says most of my boyfriends are still alive too. I just love that idea. Just that whole thing.
Yeah, and but the only real to connect her to the actual homicide or murder was the picture where her foot and her pants was shown dragging Travis' body. And she said in the interview, I have the same pair of pants at home, but that's not mine.
Yep,
and
that was a problem.
that was a really bad idea. Really mad. Yeah, the first mistake was committing murder. Thank you, Bass. That's
but that's not necessarily the right argument because, well, I mean, I guess murder is a legal term, right? So killing somebody, right? And someone else said, I can't imagine somebody's. Oh yeah, John did 27 times. I mean, I can imagine a scenario in which someone is attacking me and I have to stab them 27 times to defend myself. So, just saying, it's possible.
Yeah, and
just don't take pictures of it, and then save those pictures, and then lie about them, and then
leave the camera behind, and then interject yourself into the investigation. Then start off with one story, change it to ninjas, and then change it to self-defense. It's a series of many bad ideas here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and I heard the call waiting beep, so I clicked over and I heard someone say, is Jodi there? And I recognized his voice, so I clicked back over and said, I have to call you back. So I clicked back over and we started talking again.
Did you, after that conversation, did you become friends again? Did you start dating again? Just describe that for me.
Yeah, I felt kind of silly explaining to him why I was calling him, especially knowing that his religious beliefs at that time were not really defined. And I kind of expected him to laugh at me, but it was important to me. So I told him the reason I was calling, and
Overall, to me, continue.
He expressed appreciation for that, which surprised me. We just sort of picked up from there and began talking again.
Does talking mean dating?
No, not yet.
Why do these guys keep coming back to her?
Evening recess.
What
Ladies and
is it
gentlemen,
about
please be
her?
in the designated area at 3:20. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.
Wait, what do we have now?
What?
I was just wondering what we have now. If they're done are they done for the afternoon or for the day?
No, this is afternoon break, not afternoon
Oh,
as in
okay.
the entire day. We have about 50 minutes,
Okay.
but in 1.25, so about 40 minutes. So I think we should get the rest of the day done within this stream.
Absolutely. I agree, Kitty. She's a very liberal giver with her holes.
Mm.
The presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay. There was a computer issue, and it resulted in us needing to substitute court reporters. You may continue, Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Arias, before we took a break, I believe we were talking about the point in time in your life when you got back together with Bobby Waters.
Yes.
And from what I understood earlier, you were about 17 years of age when that took place. Is that right?
Yes.
And you were talking about how he had called you, responded to your initial phone contact. Tell us how the relationship progressed from him making telephone contact with you.
Well, at the time I had a boyfriend. He lived in another country. So we corresponded. So it wasn't a romantic reason. Like I had said, I reached out to him for a spiritual reason. I don't know if he was seeing anybody at that time. I don't think he was. He used to call a party line a lot and meet people on that. I guess this was before the internet was really, in every single home.
Let me interrupt you a little bit there on a couple of different things.
Did
You
she say
said
party line?
He made contact on a party line. What is that? Can you describe that for us?
From my understanding, I didn't talk on it, but from my understanding, it was a 900 number that you could call, and it's like a chat room, but it's on the telephone instead of on the computer.
And you chatted to Bobby that way, or
I didn't. He chatted with other people that way.
And you also mentioned, I don't want to be too far from it, you mentioned that when he made this contact.
Could you imagine the
with you,
depraved shit said in there?
After the contact he made for what you described as spiritual reasons, you said that you had a boyfriend in another country, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that boyfriend's name?
Victor.
Did Victor have a last name?
Arias, ironically.
I'm sorry, what?
His last name was also Arias.
Okay. And where did you meet Victor Arias?
The summer that I turned 17, right before I turned 17 in July, I flew to Costa Rica on an exchange program, and I spent 3 weeks there with a family. Their name was also Arias, and they had 2 sons and 2 daughters in that family, and the oldest son was just a little older than me, and so we kind of clicked and got to know each other and sort of had a little romance kind of blossom thing. I don't know, it was like my first experience of like the warm fuzzy, somebody that I really felt that I cared for.
Okay, and that relationship lasted a few weeks, or tell me how it lasted beyond your being there.
It sort of began to develop while I was in Costa Rica. And I flew back toward the end of, I had my 17th birthday there in that country. And then I flew back near the end of July. And we corresponded and talked occasionally on the phone through August. And then he flew to the United States that September and stayed in Redding, which is a city about 100 miles south of Wairika. He had some people that he knew there. He stayed there about a week, I think, and then stayed at my house for 2 weeks before flying back.
And when did he come stay for you for 2 weeks? When was that?
That was early September 1997.
So this is about the time then that you were close to the time that you were in contact with Mr. Juarez as well, right?
Yes, it was just right before that.
Okay. And you considered Mr. Arias to be a boyfriend?
Yeah, actually he had given me a ring, and it was kind of a promise ring, like we were going to get married, but we weren't officially engaged. So we would talk about children and marriage, and he wanted me to come live down there and start a family.
Okay. You said it's your first experience of, I guess, what we call young love, right?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I wouldn't say totally in love, but it was my first taste of being like, just feeling like.
You sure it
warm
wasn't
about something,
lust?
if that makes sense.
As it relates to your situation then, Mr. Arias, Victor, he goes back to Costa Rica, I assume, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the relationship becomes one probably, is it primarily of letters, phone calls? Describe that for us.
Yeah, we wrote a lot. The postman actually got to know my name and face, and he would tease me every time I went to the post office to get it stamped to send to Costa Rica. And I would receive letters from him that were really romantic, and the Spanish language is very romantic, so he would write things like that, very romantic.
Okay, and relative to your age, how old was Victor?
I don't remember his exact age. I want to say he was about a year older than me. I think we were we were very close in age, but he was older than me.
Now, when you started interacting with Mr. Juarez again, we heard from your earlier testimony that he became your boyfriend at a certain point in time when you were around.
You haven't missed anything
right?
significant yet, MG Law.
Could you
A lot of
describe
foundational stuff.
what happened in that time period when Victor was your boyfriend and then Bobby became your boyfriend?
Yes, Bobby and I would talk a few times a week, and then it became a little more frequent. Victor and I would, I couldn't see myself like moving to Costa Rica and having that kind of life and having children with him. We argued like over little silly things. Victor was very jealous, and so we would I couldn't talk to any of my high school friends that were guys. I went through the drive-through, and there was a classmate that I had gone to school with 2 years, over the years, and he had a job there, and I was driving, of course, because Victor was from out of the country, and we just were there to get ice cream. It was hot, and he gave us the ice cream, and we hadn't seen each other all summer, this person that served us, and the interaction I had with him, Victor didn't like it, so we argued over things like that. When we were in Costa Rica, he wanted me always to walk on the inside of on the sidewalk away from the street, and we were at a huge soccer game there. It's a very big deal there. They call it football, but it's soccer. And there was actually someone that walked by that looked a lot like Bobby, and it kind of reminded me of him at the time. He had long, dark, curly hair, and I glanced at him, and Victor got upset. So things like that, I just didn't see myself being in a marriage with him. So I broke up with him around October, maybe November, 1997, on the phone.
On the phone?
Yes.
Okay. After you broke up with Victor, did you continue seeing Mr. Juarez?
We weren't really seeing each other. We were just friends at that time, but we continued to talk.
Okay. When did the friendship move into something more, to be your boyfriend?
It was again around New Year's. I think we spent New Year's Eve. I had a car then, so we drove out to this little white chapel it's called Little Shasta. It's a tiny, it's even smaller town. I don't even know if it's
They gotta
considered.
get married.
And it's this small white chapel with a tall steeple, and there was snow everywhere. And
Hey,
we
Britt.
just kind of hung out there and running the new year. Didn't really do it. I had began to develop feelings for him right before Christmas, and so I expressed that, and he said he had feelings for me too, and so we decided to give things another try at that point.
This is before she became Mormon.
And this
Right.
would have been a few months prior to you moving in with him. Is that right?
I believe I moved in with him in late April, and so we're around the new year. So 4 months, 4.5, maybe 5.
So she's had 2 guys
parents-
before Travis, right?
Were they aware of your relationship?
Sorry, what did you say?
She had 2 guys before Travis. Am I right? She had
According to
Victor,
her,
she
yeah.
had- and Bobby.
Yeah, according to her testimony, yes, so far. But we do know at the same time as Travis, or after the breakup, we do know that she had someone she met, but we don't know to what extent.
Brandon, she was 28 when Travis accidentally ran into her 27 times while she was holding a knife.
Yeah. Yeah, they were both 28, I would
I
assume.
believe so, or pretty
Yeah.
comparable.
Mm.
With, and I'm speaking as it relates to the occasion we're talking about now, when you're 17 or 18, 17, excuse me. Did they know about your relationship with Mr. Juarez?
They knew about it. I don't know how they knew. I wasn't very open with them about my relationships because of prior negative experiences with regard to that. So somehow, it's a small town. I'm sure people told them they saw us running around or hanging out in the park or just walking around, and we hung out. So people would tell my mom and things like that.
Did you ever get any indication that your parents approved or disapproved of this relationship?
I didn't talk extensively with my dad about it, but my mom didn't like the fact that I was with him because she was basing her opinion on him off of rumors she had heard about him.
When you described it in high school how you were working for your father at your father's restaurant, right?
Yes.
And you were in high school your junior year. All this was going on at the point in time when you were began dating Mr. Juarez, right?
I think my dad's restaurant closed the year prior when I was still a sophomore. I can't quite remember. No, I think he closed that spring. I think he closed that spring in 90, that would have been 98. I can't remember. It was sometime in high school he closed his restaurant.
Okay.
I don't know who those women are that they keep showing.
After that?
Yes.
Before you moved out?
Did I? Yes. I worked briefly as a hostess at a little restaurant called Grandma's House.
And during this point in time, when you're a 17-year-old high school student, Mr. Juarez is out of school, are you supplying him with money at this point in time before you've left school?
Yes. Well, he lived with two people he called mom and dad. I think they were his grandparents. Bobby said he was adopted, so his real parents, it was kind of, I never really met them. But he lived with them. They would be his mom and dad by definition. So I think they were just supplying, clothing and shelter and food and that kind of thing at that point.
Okay. So going back to my question, were you supplying Mr. Juarez with money at this point in time?
At this point, no.
Then you leave high school and you move in with Mr. Juarez, right?
Yes. In the spring.
And you mentioned that he was living with persons you believe to be his grandparents, his
Yes.
adopted grandparents.
I don't know if they were
Thanks, Twisted.
like really related or if he just called them his parents. But if anything, they were more like his grandparents, but he called them mom and dad.
You say that because of their age?
Yeah, they were very much older. I actually saw who everyone around town kind of knew was his mother, but he didn't want anything to do with her, and she was more appropriate age to be his mother. And these people were more like in their 70s, late 70s maybe.
Okay. When you spoke about your first relationship with Mr. Juarez, you spoke about his desire to move to San Francisco and chase vampires and be with
That
you
would be Travis.
forever, and how he dressed.
Yep. Travis did.
Style.
To his friends, not to her face.
Still,
Yeah.
Was that 15-year-old Bobby the same way he was when you got back together with him?
No, he was 20 now. He was a little more mature, but he still had that eccentricity about him. He had a flair. For Halloween, he would dress up as the character played by Brandon Lee from The Crow with the white face and all black leather and all that. So it was a Halloween thing, but he really got into that. He did it pretty well, actually. So he was still drawn to that, and part of that was fascinating to me. I thought he was beautiful on the inside and out, and I was attracted to him in that regard. And but he was a little more down to earth at this point.
Earlier, you were describing for us a situation where you were taking some of your possessions and moving it
Might be.
to Mr. Juarez's home, and now eventually you moved out.
Yes.
What was the last straw for you to move out of your house?
I think the last straw was actually when they said you're grounded until you're 18. And a lot of my things were already at Bobby's house or his parents' house. They were putting it in a storage shed right behind the house. Just boxes of things that I had been saving because I knew I was going to be on my own soon. My dad had recently closed his restaurant. He let me have a lot of the plates, the dishes, the silverware. So that would just get me started. So things like that, old books I'd already read but didn't want to part with, things like that went to the storage shed. And then when I was grounded, I thought I only have a few more things to throw in the car plus my cat. So I stayed up all night packing while my parents slept. And my dad, when he would ground me, he used to unhook my car. I don't know what that means, but I would go out and try to turn the engine and it wouldn't turn. He unhooked something under the hood. And I think I figured out how to rehook it. So then he started taking the entire piece so that I couldn't rehook it. So the first thing I did was I went out after they went to sleep to check if my car would start, and it did. So I was relieved. So I began to load up the car. I was almost completely packed. And then I think around 4:30 or 5, I heard one of my parents awake. So I was in the living room still packing up a few things, and I jumped on the couch real quick to pretend like I was sleeping so they wouldn't wonder why I was awake. And I was very tired, so I ended up falling asleep. And the next thing I knew, it was 7:30 or 7 o'clock, and my mom was in the kitchen preparing breakfast. And I thought, oh shoot, I missed my opportunity. But I just went into my bedroom, found my cat, picked her up, and I just started walking out the door. My mom said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Nothing." And I just shut the door and put my cat in my car and drove out to Bobby's house, unloaded it, and then went to school that day.
And you say Bobby's house. These people you described as his grandparents, did they live in this home as well?
Yes.
And Was there anyone else besides them and Bobby in this home?
No.
Okay. Describe for us the environment you were leaving your home with your parents in order to live with Bobby. What were you moving to?
It was, structurally, the house was very good, but it was in very bad shape. His parents were very heavy smokers, so there was always a haze hanging out in the living room, and there was a lot of, I don't know what it's called, I guess tar or something running down the walls, kind of in a deep brown. The living room was almost, not quite to the ceiling, but it was packed with a bunch of things. I don't know what it was, just various odds and ends. I guess they were hoarders. Bobby did the best to make his bedroom his own little space, but he wasn't allowed to touch any of those things while they were there. And so, I mean, the kitchen was very, very dirty. The bathroom was very dirty. The linoleum was coming off the floor and the shower was kind of falling apart. And it was just a mess. All of the yard all around the house was overgrown. I went back to my parents' house a few days later to borrow their cleaning supplies for it.
Doesn't sound like Bobby's house was a great place to live.
No, he hated it. Like I said, his own room, he did his best to make that his space and make it habitable. And then his parents would kind of sit in the living room all day and watch TV and smoke till they went to bed.
You mentioned
Smoke
he
and
kept
watch.
his room in a different way. Was that a room you shared with him?
Yes.
Were you having a sexual relationship with him at that point in time?
I'm trying to remember if we were at that point. We did eventually.
Oh, I was
I don't
muted.
remember if it was right before I moved in with him. I think it was right after I moved in with him. Can't
Solomon
remember.
is here.
We waited several months.
Hey, Solomon. Yes, I am on a boat.
So from what you're telling us then is that you moved into this home, this filthy home with one clean room in it. You dropped out of high school and you were working, right?
Sounds like the
Sorry,
start
repeat that?
to a great life.
At this point in time, when you moved in with Bobby, you were at the end of your junior year and that was your last school,
Yes, that's
right?
coming up on the end of my junior year.
And you were working as well, I believe you said at Grandma's?
Yes, my dad had recently closed his restaurant. I think I got a part-time position there at Grandma's house.
Okay. And was this how you were supporting yourself?
Yes, it was.
And were you supporting Mr. Juarez as well?
Not quite yet. Occasionally we'd go on a date and I, of course, would pay for it, which wasn't a big deal to me at the time. He had a problem getting identification to prove that he was legally able to work in the United States. So he didn't have a photo ID. He couldn't find a copy of his birth certificate. He didn't have a social security card, but he did have a social security number. But every time we went to the DMV or the social security office or the courthouse, they wanted one form of identification that we were trying to get. So of those three, it was hard to get all of them. So he couldn't, that was the reason he couldn't work, or so that was what I understood.
Okay. So based on what you told us earlier then, at the end of your junior year, you dropped out of high school and you began working full-time to support yourself, right?
Yes, Bobby and I went to Chico, California briefly, which is near Sacramento. It's a little bit south, I think. I was going to work there. I was going to live there. It didn't work out. We were there for about a week, and we went back. And so then I applied at a restaurant where I applied at Denny's, actually. And the woman there that gave me a good reference had worked for my dad the previous year, her and her husband. So I was hired there around, I think, August 2000. Wait, I'm sorry. That would be 1998.
And are you working full-time?
Yes, I am. Was.
And is that the only job you had, or did you have another?
I didn't, I'm sorry, I forgot, because in between that, I did have a brief job at this restaurant called the Purple Plum. I was a busser. I worked there briefly before thinking I was going to move to Chico, and then I came back and began to work at Denny's.
So working at Denny's, was this how you were supporting yourself and Mr. Juarez?
Yes, that became our income.
Were you making
Her memory's amazing until the actual moment of
well,
the.
The cost of living was very high. I would say no, but we were making ends meet because I didn't have rent.
She has excellent memory, I would assume, because she remembers three different things.
So we had the kind of run of the house and cleaned it up a little and, discovered just things about the house that we didn't know about before because it was so cluttered.
Well, who was paying for the phone? Who was paying for the power?
Not me. I don't know. I guess I really don't know. The phone was there. The power was there. I think his parents were still paying for it. I don't know.
Were you giving Bobby money to buy food, or how was that?
Yes, I went grocery shopping. I started buying him a few clothes. At one point, the power did shut off in the winter.
Power was shut off.
Yeah, it was shut off briefly.
So how did you get by? Were you able to get it turned back on? How did that?
We had a furnace and we used candles for a while. It was very cold. I don't remember how they got the power on, but Bobby had a friend or knew somebody that he had come over to the house and he tinkered with a meter on the side of the house and then we had power again. So,
Brandon, it's not so much the bodies, but the blood.
This-
You know, that's
I'm
the
like-
issue.
Yeah. Yeah, she only loses her memory when there's ninjas and self-defense situations. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't seem like it was very ideal.
no, but it was, I enjoyed the freedom. We just played it by ear. I got moved to the graveyard shift at Denny's after some months there. And so we all became night owls, me and Bobby and all of our
Graveyard shift.
circle of
Phrasing.
friends that we socialized with.
Say night shift,
At
not
this point in
graveyard
time,
shift.
How did Bobby treat you?
I thought he treated me well until I discovered that he wasn't being faithful.
And when in your
It's amazing how many
relationship
men
did
that
you discover
happens to with
We
her.
had gone, he was on the party line a lot and he talked to this woman frequently. He said
After a
they were just
few
friends, they had been interested in each other in the past. but they
A-hole
decided to be
boyfriend,
friends.
maybe
Made me a
you
little
should start
uncomfortable,
looking for another type
He would
of
talk to her a lot, actually, in my presence, so I
Okay.
figured he's doing it right in front of me, there's nothing going on there. So then one day we went to the library, that's where we went for our internet access, and he would email her a lot. And I had to go to work at the Purple Plum, and I dropped him off at his friend's house, and I went to go to the Purple Plum. And before going to the Purple Plum, I went back to the library, and I clicked, he had a Hotmail account, this is in 1998. So I clicked I don't know if they had different security things for Hotmail at that point, but I clicked the back button to see what was really going on with her because I had suspicions. And I found a whole bunch of love letters that he was writing her that were all contemporaneous with the time that we were together. So I printed them out and I called in sick for work because I was not well emotionally. And I drove back out to his friend's house and I didn't want to create a scene of
Confronted
drama.
him.
So I just said, can I talk to you? And so we went into the bathroom and I pulled them out of my pocket and handed them to him and he opened them up and read them. And he kind of felt like shocked.
Kind of glossed over it a little bit. When you
Very
saw these
childlike to have
letters-
to confront him like that.
Yeah. I mean, well, they were teenagers. She's still talking about her first real boyfriend. So
I
she's still
guess, yeah.
a teenager, but yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, now who's jealous? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How did it make you feel?
It didn't make me feel good. He was very loving and poetic with this person, and I could tell he had real feelings for her. And I don't know, I guess I felt jealous a little bit, but my heart was pounding. I just felt very deceived. I forgot to mention one of the things I did before I went to the house is I drove back out to Montague and I took all of my belongings out of his room and put them in my car and decided I was going to move out and in with my grandmother. So that's when I went back to his house and confronted him with those.
Okay.
Or I mean, back to the friend's house, sorry.
You mentioned that he was, this woman, whoever it was that he was corresponding with, that he was treating her in a very loving, poetic way.
Yes.
It leads to the implication anyway that he wasn't that way to you.
He
Yeah.
was initially, but I don't know, I guess we had just sort of gotten comfortable around each other and we weren't fighting or anything. We were just kind of, I don't know, I don't really know how to explain it. He was still loving toward me, but it seemed like he was going out of his way to really court her, whereas I was already, in the bag, so to speak.
You were already, what was that?
Just like he didn't
In
have to
the
court me, I was
bag.
already with him. Does that make sense?
He was moving on from you, woman.
Yeah.
Was Bobby ever physically abusive towards you?
There was one time where we had a fight.
Everyone's abusive towards
I
her.
think this was in 99. We had broken up and got back together a few times. I broke up with him obviously after that incident, and then
Obviously.
he somehow, it's a long story, but he convinced me to stay. So I stayed and put all my things back. And he promised we wouldn't have contact with her anymore. But we broke up a few more times and then got back together. And at one point, I had moved out of his house and I was living with another woman. And it wasn't far from his house. It was like 2 blocks. And in Montague, there's a lot of fields. We could see each other's houses from there, sort of. And so I was advised over and over to get away from him because he's not healthy. But, you know, my heart was, I still cared about him. So one day he came over to the house like he always did, and we were hanging out. And I don't remember how, but an argument started. And
Sustained.
When was this?
this was sometime in 1999. I think it was in the fall, early fall, like September, maybe even August. But I think it was around sometime in the early fall.
And he was at the home. Was he physical with you at this acquaintance's home?
Yes, our argument escalated, and he approached me and spun me around, and he was very much into martial arts, so he had some kind of hold. I guess it's called a stranglehold.
Was he
So he started
the
strangling me.
ninja?
And just for a few seconds.
Yeah.
Was he the ninja that broke in? This is all kinds of nonsense. This is childhood drama, melodrama bullshit.
Yeah. And
it means nothing as to why she unalived Travis.
Yeah, and here's the thing. She's telling a lot about him. Is there anything to back this up?
Well, so Bobby says in chat, all her boyfriends were abusive as needed to be to justify Travis killing. LOL. Yeah, but here's the thing. I think it would be a better argument if, I had a normal relationships with everybody else. It was all completely normal, and it was just amicably ended. I didn't confront anybody. There was no hostile drama or fighting. And then all of a sudden, Travis was a different story.
Yeah, and I couldn't get away and everything, but he convinced me, and I was drawn in. I mean, I agree. That would have been a much better story, just saying everything was normal, but something happened with Travis.
Mm-hmm.
But now everything she said, feel sorry for me. But all she's doing is she tells a story how she always get away from abusers. So
I don't know if she can help it.
Yeah.
And then he let go. I almost passed out. I fell on my knees, and it kind of made me upset because he'd never done that before. So I got up. He started walking away. I got up, and I said something to him like, what did I say? Something to the effect, details about how they would die. And at that point, the argument escalated again, and he attacked me again. I don't know how, he jumped on me. And at that point, I was trying to get to the phone to call 911, and he got my arm in some kind of lock and was putting pressure on my forearm, and I thought he might break it, because that seemed to be what the goal was. So I managed to grab the phone, and I called 911, and he grabbed it out of my hand and hung up, and I was crying, and he kept telling me to shut up because they were going to call back. So he was right. The phone rang, and he answered, and he gave the operator an excuse, like said my girlfriend was trying to program 911 into the speed dial and accidentally called it.
This happened, and then you got back together with him, right? Or you didn't really break up? This happened in
This was really toward the end of our relationship. This was really toward the end. It didn't happen. We didn't stay together much longer after that.
But you did stay together after that, right?
We continued to hang out. He met a friend that he had known prior to. His name was Matt, and he moved in with Matt. And this was in.
Let me ask you this. Why didn't you stay together with him after this incident?
Well, I don't know that we were still together, but he would still come over to the house where I lived. And it was just a nicer place to hang out than his. And I just continued to hang out with him in that regard.
Why would you hang out with him in that regard?
Well, the physical incident that occurred that day, those two things were isolated. And during all the years that I've known him, that had never happened before. So I just didn't think that it was something, a pattern of his, or that would continue.
Did you ever engage in sexual behavior with him after this incident?
I don't remember. Maybe not very. Maybe
How convenient that she doesn't remember that.
And why was that okay with you after this?
Amazing.
I still loved him.
She still loved him. This is a child.
You mentioned
childhood activities.
Point in time when Bobby moved in with an individual named Matt.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe you were talking about how at the end of your relationship with Bobby, you moved into your grandparents' home, correct?
Yes, I moved out of that woman's house and into my grandmother's house.
And what city is your grandmother's house located in?
Wairika.
And did you live there just with your grandmother, or was anyone else living there?
My grandfather also lived there, and their dog, Ringo.
Did she take
Were
bites too?
you close to your grandparents? How was your relationship with them?
I felt close to my grandparents, not like lovey-dovey close, but they're very down-to-earth people. Well, my grandmother's very down-to-earth, and I can just tell her anything, and it doesn't really faze her.
Why didn't you move back in with your parents?
Well, I didn't want to go back to that environment. We got along very well after I moved out, and I wanted to keep it that way.
Tell us about your life after you moved back to your grandparents' home. Are you still working at Denny's? Do you go back to school? Just kind of describe your life for us.
Yes, after that incident occurred with Bobby, I had worked at Denny's for about a year at that point, and if you're a full-time employee at Denny's, or I think a minimum of like 32 hours a week, you get vacation benefits, and so I decided to use that time to spend away from him, and I flew back to Costa Rica for a week and a half.
This is interesting. Thank you for choosing to watch the trial one more time. And there seems to be a bunch of people who have not seen the trial or even know the result of it. So please no spoilers. But I kind of agree with this comment.
Yeah, I would agree too. Also, Jodi had made a comment about Jodi in the chat had made a comment about Jodi Arias liking drama. I think you could also put her whole life focused around obsession with looks, drama, attractiveness, fakeness, things like that.
Yeah.
But no, I agree.
Yeah. And here's the thing. She is very one-toned throughout this testimony about her youth. Even when she testifies about the supposed abuse and being attacked and everything, same tone, no emotion. I mean, I would assume that she was recommended, you need to show emotion. You don't have to.
Blanton's comment. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not pulling that up on the screen. Let's see here. We have 20 minutes more.
All right.
And am I correct in assuming that was to spend time with Victor?
No, he didn't live in the house anymore. I stayed with the same family, but he had moved out and moved on.
So you spent about a week and a half, it sounds like, with Victor's family, not with him,
Yes.
and kind of assessing your life. Is that?
Yeah, I
fair
spent
to
a lot
say?
of time just reflecting and healing from that, and I felt in a lot better place by the time I came back. Victor, actually, I didn't see Victor 3 days before I flew back. So he took me out to dinner and that was it, and then drove me to the airport.
When you say healing from that, what are you talking about? Healing from the relationship with Bobby?
Yes, because we kept going back and I kept hearing about incidents where he was trying to hook up with other girls, but then he would deny it and I didn't see anything. So there was just a lot of turmoil. We were arguing still, and then the physical incident that happened there, and I needed to just remove myself from the situation so that I could allow my heart to move on a little. And so that break from him, I thought, had helped me a lot.
So at some point in time, you were in love with Bobby, right?
Yes, very much. A lot more than I was Victor. Bobby was like my first true love.
Okay. So once you have spent some time in Costa Rica and you've, I guess, used your vacation time at Denny's, you come back to Wairika, I presume?
Yes, I did.
And how do you proceed in your life?
I went back to work, and I don't know if he was watching the restaurant, but the first day back, I was there. I went into the back of the restaurant to get something, and I came back out, and he was sitting at the counter.
He being who?
Bobby.
Okay.
He just had his face in his hands, and he has really beautiful eyes, and he was looking at me with these eyes, these puppy dog eyes, and I stopped, and I was kind of shocked. I felt stronger emotionally, not as weak, but I was coming up on my half-hour break, so I said, just wait a few minutes, and we'll go outside and talk. So I went outside, and we ended up talking for a long time. I mean, we rounded the corner, and then hugged, and it was emotional, and that kind of thing.
But was that the last time you saw Bobby?
No,
Did you continue in a relationship?
Bobby's
with him
getting
after
accused of
that?
all kinds of
we
things.
decided we were going to continue a relationship, but we weren't getting along very well.
And I use the word relationship. Are we talking about friendship or a romantic relationship?
I
Romantic.
would assume in
that mean also mean sexual?
redirect,
It would have meant
which
that.
is
I don't really
after
remember, but yeah,
Christmas,
it would have meant that.
they
So
might try
why
to
at
get
this
Bobby on
point
the
in
stand
time
saying
were you
she
still
was lying
open
her
to the
teeth
idea
out.
of a romantic and potentially sexual relationship with a man who had choked you and thrown you down as you described?
Well, like I said, I considered those incidents isolated and not a pattern of his, and I still loved him, and he still loved me, and I didn't want to hurt him, and I didn't want to. It just felt natural. I'd been with him for some years. He was my first love. Being with him, whether it was good or bad, it just felt natural, and it was what I was accustomed to.
Okay. So at what point in time then do you decide, you said you and Bobby explored this and decided it wasn't for the best? When does that take place?
There was sort of a turning point in my mind. Well, Costa Rica was like a good starting point where I thought I'd moved on. If I hadn't seen him again, I think I would have been okay as far as never seeing him again. But I was weak when he came back, and so we sort of picked up again briefly. He moved to Medford, Oregon shortly thereafter. It's about 50 miles north of Wairika. And he moved in with Matt. And I would go up there and visit Bobby, and we'd hang out. And it seemed like once Bobby got on his feet, he didn't really want anything to do with me. And so it hurt my feelings, I guess, because he had kind of won me back and I was helping him. But then when he got on his feet, he was kind of mean.
What do you mean you were helping him?
Well, I always helped him out until he was able to do it. He finally got a job when he moved to Medford. There was a woman he knew that was a notary public that grew up with him in school. So she was able to say, this is really who he is. So he could get identification. We finally figured that out. And so.
Let me interrupt him. I want to make sure we're clear here. Even after the incident, what you were describing as an isolated incident of violence, even after the point in time when you find letters that are evidence that he's being unfaithful with you, and you come back from Costa Rica, you're going to move on, you've decided a romantic relationship isn't going to work, are we to understand that you're still supporting him financially as well? Or helping him?
think that was a little bit out of order, but I did continue to help him. When I found out about the love letters, he promised to cut ties with her and not have any contact with her anymore. And it wasn't physical, it was online only. She lived in Louisiana. And I think he was still talking to her, but he promised me, you'll never have to see me talking to her. So it was implied that he might talk to her, but he'll never do it in my presence. So it was kind of strange. But, and then again, the physical incident was isolated. So if he needed clothing, I didn't like buy him a whole wardrobe. I didn't have that kind of income. But if he needed a few shirts or something, he was really into South Park. So he saw these South Park t-shirts one time and he wanted those. So I bought them, sweatshirt, jeans, that kind of thing. Just some kind of clothing for him because his parents weren't able to provide that at that point. They were in a rest home.
Okay.
Maybe we can get an
And you
interview
said at
with
this
Bobby.
point in time,
Yeah.
If we could track him down.
Yeah, if we can track him down. The only thing I can find about him is apparently he is still alive today. So apparently he was alive at the time.
Farrell will find him.
Yeah, Farrell will find him. And I had Amy Ohio has pics of her with Bobby. I also have that. I found it.
Nice.
Yeah. And but yeah, if we can track these people down, why not? It should be an interesting thing to do once we are done with the trial, to interview people involved.
Yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Bobby was living in Medford, Oregon with an individual named Matt, right?
Yes.
Okay. And just so we can get a sense of where this is compared to Wairika, could you describe for us where Medford is compared to Wairika?
Yes, it's on Interstate 5, just like Wairika. It's over the border. It's about an hour drive, I think 50 miles, but it takes about an hour to get there depending on traffic and the weather.
And certainly not asking for population estimates, but is this a bigger town than Wairika?
It's a bigger town, not nearly as big as this area. It's very tiny in comparison, but it's much bigger than Wairika.
And you made trips up to Medford to see Bobby, is that right?
Yes, I would come up there on the weekend and stay. Bobby had a futon. They had kind of a studio, so Matt slept in his own bed, and Bobby and I had a futon. And we would hang out on the weekends and go out and do things.
Okay. And how many of these trips can you say? I mean, was this something you did every weekend? How frequently did you go up to spend time with Bobby?
I went up several times.
Let's see here. This is 4 episodes ago.
Yeah, well, yeah. So what the prosecutor did was he used his lead detective in the police interrogation video as filler when witnesses were not available during his case in chief. So the police interrogation video isn't it isn't played all at once. It's broken up over several days of testimony in several of our episodes. But it is interesting. Yes, she sings, she stands on her head, she says things like, "Those are my pants," or "I have pants like those, but those aren't mine," and "all of my exes are dead, so I didn't do this."
All of my exes are still
are
alive.
alive. Sorry, yeah, are alive. Yeah.
But that period of our relationship was short-lived, so that didn't happen often. I mean, very extensively.
Okay. And this person, Matt, that he was roommates with, had you known Matt prior to these trips up to Medford?
No.
And does Matt have a last name?
McCartney.
Did you ever develop any sort of friendship or relationship with him?
Yes, we became friends around the time. I think he kind of noticed how Bobby was treating me, and it felt good to have somebody else kind of see my side of it. He wasn't attacking Bobby by any means, like saying, "Hey, you should be this way or that." But it just, I came up there one weekend to visit, and another girl came to visit Matt, and it was a real eye-opener because I saw how Matt was treating her, and he was very chivalrous and very polite, and he was a gentleman, and he just treated her with a lot of respect, and that's not something I'd received, but I've seen it on TV and that kind of thing. So it was just jarring to see that, and then consider my relationship. So
well, let me ask you this. You said that was surprising for you to see, right?
yes.
And that is in a way that you experienced Bobby treating you. Is that right?
No. Yes, that's right.
But you lived with your parents for 17 years, the first 17 years of your life, right?
Yes.
Did you not see your father treat your mother in this way? Did they treat each other in a different manner?
When I was young, my father was very affectionate with my mom. I've seen them kiss. I've seen them embrace. If there's a beautiful woman on TV and we're all sitting around watching it, he'll say she's not as pretty as your mom. Or, he put her on sort of a pedestal, sort of. But then there were times when they would argue and fight, things like that.
You say argue and fight. What does that mean?
Not physical. They would just, sometimes. He would say something. My dad's very sarcastic and he thinks he's funny. And sometimes he is. But he can be very uncouth sometimes. And so when things would come out of his mouth, my mom would just smack him on the arm. And he would smack her back kind of as a way to say, "Don't do that." And then she would be offended by that. So she would smack him back, and then he'd smack her even harder. And then she would give up. But it was just on the arm. But, that's the only time I ever saw him be physical at all.
Did you know, how did your father?
So that was the only time she saw him being physical at all. And yet he abused you to that extent. Something isn't adding up here.
No, it's Story Time by Jodi Arias.
Yeah. And everything in the same tone of voice as if she is telling a story.
Yeah, some people in the chat are saying I heard about the case, but I haven't watched it. That's me too. I've heard about it. I didn't watch it. And I thought she was going to be a lot more compelling on the stand than she is.
Yeah.
Maybe she gets there, but this is not very compelling.
Yeah, and I've seen there is a movement out there for Jodi, innocent, everything. I really can't see, not at this time at least. But I
think the people that are simping for her and saying Jodi is innocent are hoping that they can eventually get her out and then get access to the third hole.
Yeah. And also, for those who are completely new, we do know that no spoilers.
No spoilers.
Apparently there was a lot of misconduct from the prosecution, and I've seen hints of it, but not to the extent that I have heard about it. This will be really interesting to see how everything turns out, because as David, I've heard about this, but I've never seen it. So yeah, it will be interesting. So everything is new here for us as well.
Your mother, was he degrading to her? Did he criticize her?
I can't recall specific incidents, but that's very much my dad. He's very negative. He's very critical. He's very gossipy.
Barry, what was that?
I don't know if that's a word, gossipy. He gossips a lot about people
Okay.
behind their back. He talks about them. So, I mean, he'll say things about, now we talk on the phone now, and he'll say things about my mom sometimes, or sometimes they have complaints about each other, but, you know, they're still loyal to each other.
Well, what do you mean things he would say about your mom? What things would he complain about with your mother? Supposed to model behavior.
Approach.
Oh my God, I was muted.
Mm.
I was commenting on Dave with the white beard as the Viking and the blue beard as the pirate. A woman says he's gossipy. Yeah, I don't understand. This woman is gossipy. This woman is about the drama. This young girl at the time,
Without talking specifically what he said.
and during this trial.
Was there certain subject matters that your dad would degrade your mother regarding?
One I recall specifically is my mother used to be very thin, and I think she's like a size 10 now, I guess. He used to put up photos of her on the refrigerator when she was thinner, and he would make comments about her weight gain. And just, he would put little things like that around the house to remind her that he would prefer her with less weight, things like that. So I don't know how that affected her, but that was pretty constant. If somebody was crossing the crosswalk that was overweight, he would yell at them, and I don't say what he said, but I don't know, things like that.
Okay.
So
But you said
that's
your mother would
her
just
mother,
you said you,
and
something to the effect.
she's saying a lot of interesting
you
things.
learned they were always loyal to each other.
Yes.
Your mom was always loyal to your dad. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, my parents weren't the kind where if one said no, you couldn't run to the other and have a different answer. Maybe if they weren't aware of the other of their spouse's answer, but they were very united. If we were fighting, it didn't matter the points of the argument. My dad would side with my mom, or my mom would side with my dad at all times. So they were like one unit. They were very united. They're very loyal. And I think when I was younger, I heard my mom mention the word divorce one time, and that really like shook me, because I thought it just didn't seem, I couldn't imagine a world where my parents weren't married. And so they're still married today. I mean, even through bad times, they're still together. They still love each other.
Well, I should have been more clear in my question. You know, you talked about loyalty as parents,
Loving
backing each
parents,
other up,
smack
and that
you
sort
around
of
when
thing.
you needed it.
But what I was really asking about is in terms of the loyalty of the relationship. Sounds like from what you're telling us, your mom put up with a fair amount and remained loyal to your dad. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes. Yeah, they're very loyal. They're still married. They've been married about 33 and a half years. My grandparents are married. There's not a very high divorce rate in my family. They're still together.
Okay. We were talking about this different way. Matt McCartney was treating a female, I guess it was his girlfriend or someone he was dating. Is that
I
correct?
think it's somebody he had met online, or somehow she lived in Crescent City. And she just came out for the weekend the same time I came out to see Bobby, and nothing ever really progressed with that. They didn't start dating or anything like that. They just hung out for the weekend, and I just saw how he was treating her.
Okay. Tell me how things then progressed in your life. Did you just keep working? Did your life change at all?
I wanted to work in an environment where I could earn a little bit more money. I needed a new car. There were different kinds of bills coming in at this point. And Medford is a town that has a lot more restaurants, a lot more business, that kind of thing. So as I got to know Matt and Bobby,
Lawyer did not like Jodi.
Her lawyer did not. No, her lawyer did not like Jodi. Her lawyer did not agree with Jodi's defense that she wanted to argue.
Yeah.
And he insisted on going with self-defense, which, from a practical standpoint, from an attorney, you get control of the case, right? Your strategy of the case is what controls. And I even put it into my representation agreements. I control the manner of representation and the strategy that we imply in your particular case. And so he got control over it, and he said, we're going to go with the self-defense argument. He thought that was best viable. However, it requires her to take the stand, which he can't compel her to do. So there's some interesting issues with that.
Yeah, and I believe he tried to get off the case a number of times, but wasn't allowed. And afterwards, he wrote a book and got disbarred.
Pretty much.
Matt's mother lives in Wairika too.
Well,
so
now he's on
her and
Court
his
TV, by the
sister,
way.
And we all sort of became friends.
Oh, really?
And Matt's dad lived in a
I
city called
didn't know.
Phoenix.
This
or
is in
South
1.25
Florida,
speed.
And it's in Oregon. And he lived with his girlfriend, Matt's dad. And they had an extra, well, they said, just come crash on the couch until you can get a job and get your own place. So I crashed on Matt's dad's couch where he and his girlfriend lived for, I don't remember how long, maybe a month. And I got a job at Applebee's and began to work there.
Okay. So did you then move to Medford, move out of your grandparents' house and move to Medford? Just tell us about that.
Yes. Right around the time I moved to Medford, Bobby and I stopped talking. I was hanging out with him and his sister and her son. And they were renting a house right across the street from my parents' house. So I was over there hanging out with them, and Bobby came by and saw Matt and I and Kiowa, who was his nephew. We were all in the front yard. We were playing with, they're called bokens, and they're just wooden swords just to practice form and things like that. And Matt was into martial arts also. So he was teaching me some things and teaching Kiowa some things, and Bobby came around the corner and saw us all like in formation or just hanging out and having fun, and he got really upset and he walked away. And I think Matt tried to talk to him. He didn't want to talk to either of us. And at that point, things just really stopped between Bobby and I. We stopped talking. We stopped communicating. I think he moved out of Matt's studio, and I didn't see or hear from him again.
Okay. Where were you? You mentioned crashing on Matt's father's couch,
Yes.
right? And Matt's father had a girlfriend that he lived with in this home.
Yes.
Okay. Once you got a job and got settled in Medford, where did you wind up living?
Let's see. After Bobby and I stopped talking, Matt and I began to hang out more, and we developed feelings for each other. And so about a month, maybe 5 weeks went by, and Matt moved out of his studio apartment and got an apartment. And at that point, I went to live with him there, and I moved out of his dad's house, and we rented a one-bedroom apartment in Medford.
And when was this?
I would say at this point it was early 2000, I think.
Okay, and at this point in time, Matt McCartney's your boyfriend?
Yes. Well, I don't remember us making it official, but we became romantic, and then we were boyfriend girlfriend.
Okay, so we have Bobby and then Matt.
Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow morning, 10:30, please remember the admonition. Have a nice evening. You are excused.
Okay.
Let's see if there's anything. No.
Please be seated, counsel, anything before we adjourn for the day.
Nope, that's it.
All right. Have a nice evening.
Okay. That was first day of Jodi Arias.
A little bit less enthusiastic than I thought.
Yeah.
Less, she didn't even try to sell any sort of emotion. I thought it was going to be a little bit more Amber Heard-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
Of the fake drama. And the questions were a bit boring.
Yeah, they are telling a story, but the problem is it's being told as a story, not as real life. And even at 1.25, where any emotions should be more apparent, same tone.
In Dualstream, she is very detailed. I agree. The problem is that, like, you see it with Sarah Boone. We saw it with Letitia Stout during their interviews or their testimony, whatever. We haven't seen Sarah Boone's testimony. The more you talk, the kind of more guilty it makes you seem, because you don't necessarily need to remember all those details in order to get a conceivable, possible, probable story. Z Comer, she's a better actor than Amber. Yeah, probably. But that's what I expected, because, again, I haven't watched it. I just heard stories about the trial. So I expected more of an Amber Heard style testimony.
And by the way, this is Bobby and Jodi.
Oh. She looks... Did she get, like, her teeth worked on before this, or is she just smiling weird?
I have
I
no
can-
idea. But this is them at 17, 18, something like that. And Jodi looks surprisingly exactly the same, only older now.
Yeah, she does. Yeah,
Yeah.
she held up quite a bit.
And which is quite amazing seeing the recent pictures of her. But all I know about him is it's Bobby Juarez and same age, and that's all I know about him.
So he's 40 now.
Yeah.
Because she's 40. Well, no, she's 43.
Yeah, so he would be 43, 44, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. And so that was first day. I found something, well, not found something, but just something wholesome that I think this is really Sweden, European football or soccer, as we call it.
Yeah, soccer.
Yeah. And in Sweden, there's a fourth or fifth division team who has, not that many supporters, but though these kids did a so-called tifo. They do this every time they paint up a big something. So
to kind of run through it.
no, not run through it, just as supporters for the
Oh.
team standing beside. The big tifos are when you see a whole stand just showing off everything with fireworks and stuff like that. So this was posted by Swedish Supporters, which is an umbrella organization for major league soccer teams. And so they have now started a fundraiser for these kids, so they will get a really big tifo the rest of the seasons. And this is just so wholesome. I mean,
doesn't it look like someone is keeping the kids hostage and they're not happy? Is
Yeah.
that the idea?
They are claiming they are biggest team in town. Yeah, but that's the extent of their and so far this was I know the picture says 57 minutes, but this was about a week ago, and they had a game later. This weekend, and apparently over 500 people showed up.
Nice.
Yeah, so I just wanted. There are wholesome people out there who just want to do good stuff, just as to contradict the Jodi Arias of the world.
Nice. Yeah, your chat for some reason screwed up. I don't know what's up. I can't go back. There's just like everything from Z Comer, and that's it. But anyways, or at least we're at the end because it was working just fine.
Yeah, and oh no!
Remember to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about the show. And Nicholas and I are dual streaming, so you can jump back and forth and watch both of us and give us both the support.
Yeah,
I think I might have beat you on the thumbs up.
Yeah,
wait, maybe you got 69 and I have 77.
I'm good with 69. I'm perfectly fine with 69.
Yeah, just leave it there. No one else give a thumbs up to Nicholas's stream. He wants
I'm good.
And Volstrom, yes, I agree. It is soccer. Everyone knows this. It's soccer. It's not football.
Let's just call it European football, where we actually play with a ball and our feet, not with our hands with an egg.
And everyone, I do have my stream. If you're watching on my stream, redirected to. That's the end of it, by the way, today. So we're streaming for 3 hours now. Don't forget, next Tuesday at noon Eastern, 6 p.m. Swedish time, we're going to be doing day 14 of Jodi Arias. She will still be on the stand. But everyone will be redirected, if you stick on my screen, hopefully to Salvador Dali's coverage of the, what's his name? I always forget that trial.
Yeah,
anyways, that's an interesting trial.
I will redirect you from my stream as well to him. Tomorrow, It is Serial Killer Sunday on my channel. We will start off on YouTube and then go over to Rumble. Now, why do I choose Rumble for that? Well, because YouTube really don't like me doing the really gory trials. So more or less instantly, within minutes of a stream about Jodi or serial killers, they say, yeah, not suitable for ads.
Yes.
And so that's why I use Sundays for Rumble, so I can build an audience just as a safety. If YouTube imagine I build this up to I don't know 25,000 subscribers or something, and then YouTube decides to not suitable anymore and kick me out. Then I have Rumble to
Right,
keep
yeah.
going.
By the way, also, I should probably mention, I'm going to be on Cool Frog tonight at 10:30 Eastern. I have no idea what the topic is, but he says I'll enjoy it. And then before that, probably around 9:30, I'm going to hop on Kaiser Pineapple's channel for his little happy birthday stream. So I'll be doing that as well. So that's where you guys can find me. And if you are a member, I will try to put all of that in Discord so you guys can find me later today.
Yeah. And that's about it. Thank you all for showing up to all the YouTube stuff on your way out. And we will send you all over to Sal's stream. So call out the raid. And do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. That's all I got coming up right now.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Very good.
See you all.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.